Hello, puppies and kittens. Welcome to another edition of the ongoing series of Why Do You Believe? Wherein I don't like to be in an echo chamber, so I like to talk to people who disagree with me and see if I can reason with them and see if there's any chance that they're going to change my mind or vice versa. So I happened across somebody who had an interesting argument, and that's the reason for this T-shirt here. This is from a local brewery. Full-grown man is like an individual man in a now outdated evolutionary system. This brewery makes this beer. Full-grown man. This is what I'm going to be drinking today. I thought it appropriate for my guest's argument. So, Mike.
Yes.
Welcome aboard. Can you hear
What's
me,
up,
sir?
buddy? Yes, sir. Can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we got you clear. So, first question then is I'm going to ask you what your argument is. Just to reiterate your argument, let's start with that.
All right. So my proof for creation and this proof of evolution goes like this. One sperm and one egg coming together forms an entire person in 9 months from head to toe. A sperm and an egg comes from an already existing man and woman, and there is no known process that forms a person without a sperm and an egg to explain where the already existing man and woman came from. So that leaves a man and a woman standing there with no scientific explanation. And this reflects what is written in the Bible with zero science to counter it. Okay. And I'm gonna throw you the right hook. I gave you the left. I'll give you the right. A man and a woman are two halves of one reproductive system. They both have to come into existence in the same lifetime, or they would not have each other to reproduce with, and none of us would be here. So you cannot have a mother without a father. You can't have an Adam without an Eve. And this not debatable fact limits evolution to about 80 years, one human lifetime. If evolution were real, it limits evolution to about 80 years, one human lifetime, to produce. I'm going to be clean on your show. It's going to sound corny and weird. I hate saying it like this. It has to produce a penis that shoots sperm into a matching vagina with ovaries, which releases an egg on a timed monthly cycle. And it has 80 years to accomplish this, or none of us exist. But I'd like you to first address, because creation right now is on offense, right? So I could form a person without evolution, and not a person on the planet could form one with it. So I'd like you to evolve a person, and I'm gonna clip you at the knees right there anyway. Evolve a person without a sperm and an egg. But even if you were to show some type of connected dots fossil record, that would actually be in lieu of an actual process of a person being formed without a sperm and an egg. That would be in lieu of it. That wouldn't be. So in other words, Aaron, the best thing you could possibly do today would be to pull a draw. But you can't do that because you can't produce a person for me. You can't show a process. Like, we know how people are formed. There's no second way that a person is formed to show. So okay, I appreciate you letting me say that piece right there and get that off. But as of right now, we have a man and a woman standing here with no scientific explanation.
Okay, so we have an individual man, and then apparently a separate creation of an individual woman. And you're going to argue that the man was formed as a golem spell. He's magically animated mud. And that the first woman was created by a similar spell, a transmutation from one of his ribs. And in that case, if that's your perspective, then you're right. There is no scientific explanation. There is literally no way for any of that to happen. But we do have a scientific explanation for how different varieties, different populations of people and animals of all different subsets did come about. It's the most well-supported of all scientific theories, and it is called the theory of evolution.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me, I know you can't, but I'm going to ask anyway, what is evolution?
It doesn't matter, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, because you can apply whatever definition you want. I'm gonna bring you back to a single cell and ask you to evolve something. So in your reply, you mentioned populations and species, but you skipped all the evolution in between from a single cell to any population or any species. So any definition you have is fine. None of it's going to be able to produce anything.
Well, yeah, of course it
There's
does.
no, what I'm saying is there's no actual process called evolution that forms anything. There may be genetic variation within God's creation, but you can't evolve a blade of grass. You can't evolve a gnat. You can't evolve a tick or an ant. Not a person on the planet can.
You cut out for a little bit there. You said you may be able to evolve variation, and then I couldn't hear after that. What did you say
sorry.
after that?
So I said, I lost my train of thought. So I said there's genetic variation within God's creation, but there's no explanation for where any population or species came from.
Okay. Well, there is an explanation because variation is evolution. It's genetic variation in populations.
Okay.
That's literally what it is. So
wait, hold on. You mind if I genetic variation within populations? So now, Aaron, you got to evolve a population from a single cell. That's where you're stuck, buddy. There's no process.
No, I'm not, because the populations don't begin with a single cell.
Okay, I'll give you a population of cells.
Well, yeah, but they're not quite true cells yet. And we're all, for whatever reason, whenever I'm talking to a creationist, we always have to go back to the murky past, to the very beginning of all things, when it's so much easier to see if we start with the more recent and trace backward. Like
no. I'm sorry, I got to cut you off.
Now you have to understand what evolution is. So would you not agree that it makes sense to do the basics first to learn how to walk before you run?
The basics would be you start from a single cell. So in other words,
the basics would be you start with the process. How does the process work? And then you see how the process works.
Okay.
And then we go back and look at further away.
Okay. All right. Go ahead. Say your piece. I appreciate you letting me say mine. So go ahead.
All right. So you can have a mutation appear in a single individual, but it doesn't become evolution until that mutation is passed down to descendants and then also spread throughout the population. That single mutation has to be set down in like maybe you'd understand it in terms of intermarriage or whatever, where people marrying different clans, and this particular trait, red hair, whatever it is, this particular trait spreads out through the population. That becomes evolution. It's not until until it gets to the population level. Now, at the spot where you're talking about the single cell, you're talking about evolving a individual man. No, we're talking about populations. A individual female. No, we're talking about populations. You said they have to appear both at the same time. No, they don't, because most animals are asexual reproducers. And the precursors.
Aaron, what does asexual reproduction have to do with a man and woman needing a penis and a vagina in less than 80 years? What does asexual reproduction have to do with that? No, in other words, what I'm saying is pointing to an orange does not make an apple go away. Pointing to asexual reproduction does not make male and female. So you would still have to address, in other words, you'd have to evolve a penis that shoots sperm all by accident. You'd have to mutate it, I guess, is the process you're going to go with. And then you'd have to mutate a vagina. And then you'd have to do that with cats, with dogs. Well, because you say, because it's, you said, because in an evolutionist worldview, that everything would be by an accident, that it would not be by a guided process. Okay, all right. So take whatever.
It's a process that is naturally guided. It's autonomous, but it's also it derives in a particular direction. It can be said to be deterministic in some sense, because natural selection will, to select to make certain enhancements, certain changes and improvements can be made. But these are over many generations, many populations, many generations. Not one man and one woman.
Wait a second. I gotta call you out again, Aaron, because this is another evolutionist sleight of hand. And I don't mean this disrespectful, but it's gonna come up.
You don't understand what you're talking about. So
hang on a second.
You're confused.
No, I'm not confused. So
yes, you're definitely confused.
Oh, hang on a second. Okay. So you say many generations, evolution hides behind time. It takes 9 months to form a person from head to toe. You say many generations. So you're claiming either a mutation or natural selection of the processes you mentioned. So now take a population of cells and naturally select that and mutate it into a cat or a dog or a human. You use
Okay.
your processes that you.
This is why I told you need the basics. So how do we
I'm destroying the basics. There are no
well,
basics.
you're making sure you don't learn anything, and you're remaining ignorant is what you're doing.
Okay.
So
All
when
right.
you have,
All right. Let
you
me back off
understand
a
that
little.
you understand that dogs were derived from wolves, right? That's the most classic example, most
Sure.
basic
I
example I
won't.
can
I
think
won't
of.
contend with that.
Right. So did that happen overnight? Somebody got a pair of wolves, and then they just gave birth. That wolf just gave birth to puppies.
No, but there would
Of
be a process. There would be a process behind it, Aaron. There would be a
you know what
process.
the process is?
What's the process?
Evolution. So
Okay.
multiple generations in different populations. There's at least
Mhm.
4 genetic parent populations for the domestic dog breeds, the hundreds of domestic dog breeds that we have.
Yeah.
Random mutations that can be revealed and then selected for. So there's a handful of breeds that were selected for a single mutation that somebody found appealing, like the origin of the Pekingese, for example.
Are you?
The Chinese Emperor Su Shi identified that mutation, and she bred out other. Excuse me. She bred that with other similar looking dogs until she got the same mutation back again, and now she had a stable population of what we now call Pekingese dogs.
Mhm.
That's an example of evolution.
Well, now that's actually an example of that's. So that would be an example of dog breeding. That wouldn't be an example of
Yeah, that would be an
evolution.
example of dog breeding. And how does dog breeding
That would.
work?
Well,
By
hang on a
taking
second.
advantage of evolutionary principles, by
So that would
directing
no,
evolutionary
no, no, no,
principles.
no, because that's not evolutionary principles because you skipped the single cell to the dog evolution. All the evolution in between, you started
Once
with a
again,
dog. You started
once
with a dog.
again, once again, the origin of
Okay.
life the origin of life. Abiogenesis is what you're talking about.
No, it's
That
not what
is
I'm talking
not.
about.
Yes, it is. You just don't know it. That is not the same thing as evolution. Evolution has to start with an ancestor already existing.
Okay,
So
say
for
that again. Wait.
yeah,
Say that again.
the
Evolution starts
summary,
with
the
something.
summary
Evolution
definition of
starts with something already existing. What would that
the
something be?
summary, the summary
Aaron,
definition
I
of
love
what
you, buddy. Aaron, I wish
can
I could
you
kiss you. You
a
just.
summary definition of what evolution is.
Go ahead,
I'm
buddy.
not going to be allowed to say this.
Go ahead, but
The
I'm
summary
sorry.
definition of what evolution is called descent with inherent modification.
Okay.
Now
You
this
said
now that in order to descend with modification, there has to be a prior form from which that has been modified,
okay.
that has descended from. You got that?
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So you're talking about abiogenesis. You're talking about the formation of life, not the biodiversity of life. Evolution is the one and only theory of biodiversity. It is the
Okay.
only explanation for how we have many different breeds of dogs, how we have many different species of dogs, many different
Okay.
species of cats and horses and snakes and so on.
But
You
it's not
understand
the
that?
but it's not no, but it's not the explanation for where the dog came from. It's
Yeah,
genetic.
it
It's
is.
genetic.
It
It's
is the
genetic.
explanation.
It's genetics.
It is the explanation for where the dog came from. Yes, it is.
So evolve the dog. Aaron.
Populations of domestic dogs were derived from Asiatic wolves, and in the
Okay.
larger category of Canidae, all canids were derived from a prior form, which I could name for you, but it would only be confusing. A prior name or a prior caniform carnivoran.
Okay. So Aaron, evolve the dog for me then, bud.
Aran.
Aaron, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't mean any is to be. Both sides get wound up and all that. So
If
Aaron, I'm
I
sorry.
can jump in real quick. So Mike, you're
Sure.
obviously not wearing any headphones or earbuds. Do you have those handy? Because when you start talking, you can't hear Arn. When Arn is explaining something, you start over talking him. Arn will cut out, and you won't hear Arn's explanation. So it might be helpful if you either let Arn finish or start wearing earbuds, because this is how StreamYard works. There's no way to get around that.
I'm sorry. I get worked up. Go ahead, man.
Okay, so when we're talking about if we want to go into the blend of the origin of life into the diversity of life, which is what evolution is all about, that origin did not begin with a single cell. it was quite a while before, well, there was never a time when it was just about one single cell, except when, at the
Can you
beginning
say
of,
that? Can you repeat that last part? There was never a time
okay,
when it was one single cell?
when it was one single cell, except at the dawn of eukarya. And there are some eukaryotes that don't have the mitochondria in them, but it's generally taken that eukarya is, for the most part, when there was an endosymbiotic event, when we had a eukaryote cell envelop a couple of rickettsia bacteria, which are essentially mitochondria.
Okay.
So when you're looking at the emergence of life as opposed to the diversity of life, we have a number of different cell-like structures that don't meet all of the criteria to be considered alive. There's 7 basic criteria that they teach you about in middle school, but there's a lot of these semi-organisms that don't have all of these, and there's whole populations of these. So we start with populations until we get some that have maintained some homeostasis. Now, from there, we have a division where some of these cells have, as I said, have engulfed the rickettsia bacteria to become mitochondria. And as I said, there are some very primitive eukaryotes that they call the excavates, the surviving ones, that don't have the mitochondria, but virtually everything has mitochondria. So the most primitive form of life we know of is a eukaryote cell without mitochondria. And so the first category that you wanted me to talk about with biota, of course, that's living organisms. And then the second one is eukarya. Now, from eukarya, we can get into a more or less evolutionary ancestry, but evolution is an ancestry. So it's an ancestor-descendant relationship. And the problem with going prior to eukarya is that all of these protobiotic or bacterial organisms have a tendency to exchange genetic material on contact. So just touching each other, they can share their genes. So that means that the family tree doesn't start ever from a single common ancestry. It starts from a network, a mesh, like a web. So from there, we were talking about what is the development. So we have the basic cells that have the mitochondria in it. The mitochondria reproduces at the same rate as the cell does. And so now we have a population of these cells powered by the mitochondria, because that's what mitochondria do. They exist in a symbiotic relationship. Then there's a later point, a separate population that also engulfs cyanobacteria, and then they go on to develop what will eventually be plant cells. And we're going to stay with the animal cells because we don't have chloroplasts.
Okay. So you said eventually. Is there a process? Is there a process for
the process is evolution.
Eventually is a measure of time. So that's, I mean, so eventually, is there a process for what you just said turning into the plant cells?
Yes.
What's the process?
It's called evolution.
Oh, okay. So a vague, generic term called evolution.
Once again, to make it not vague, but entirely specific, we are talking about mutations that don't just occur in an individual, but that are also shared, inherited by the descendants, and then shared throughout that descendant population, not the entire population. Because when you have one original population, this is going to be important for your understanding. When you have one sole population, and the easiest way to understand this is there's 4 different types of speciation, but the most common to understand is when you have one population separated such that there is no more genetic interconnection between them, then it won't be very long, not too many generations, before you will be able to tell the difference just on sight of, if you found one interloper between the 2 populations, you'd be able to look at it and identify, did this come from the northern group or did it come from the southern group? Because mutations will occur in this group that are no longer shared with the ancestral or sister group, and so they have become 2 distinct subsets. You follow that?
Yeah, I'm tracking. I got you.
Okay. No sex yet. They don't have sex yet.
Well, what are we talking about here? What kind of organism are you at right now?
Well, the majority of organisms are asexual and they are unicellular, and that's where the most basic life forms are.
All right.
So
I'm looking for you to form a human with this process.
Yeah. So I've given you step 1 and step 2.
All right. Good.
And there are 70 steps in this process.
Okay.
So we're not going to go all the way through 70 of them because it's too
Okay.
much.
All right.
The problem you have seems to be, from what I can tell, is that you didn't. I'm thinking they teach this in middle school, but they certainly teach it in high school. They taught mitosis and meiosis, right?
Mhm. Yep.
Okay. So the first phase of meiosis begins with a diploid cell, meaning that it starts with 2 sets of chromosomes, and this cell duplicates and separates into haploid cells, meaning that each one has only 1 set of chromosomes, still in the form of paired chromatids,
Are you
but they're no
talking from a
longer.
Are you talking
What?
from a sperm and egg coming together right now, or just your individual cells?
Give me a minute. We're talking about how individual cells become
We're still
the
at
sperm
cells.
and egg.
Okay.
How individual cells become the sperm and egg, because you understand that the sperm and egg are both themselves individual cells, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we have the chromatids, and they're still in the form of they're still paired, but they're no longer genetically identical, and this is because of recombination. And this is why, the parents can have a bunch of kids, but the kids, unless they're twins, they don't all look alike. There's subtle differences between them. That's not evolution. That's something different. And then this is where corresponding sections of DNA will be swapped between maternal and paternal sets of chromosomes. And then there's a second phase, which is important. This is wherein the chromatids themselves are divided so that they're no longer paired, and now they're re-enveloped into what have now become 4 cells, and each have half as many chromosomes as they used to, and these form the gamete cells. These are the sperm and egg that you were talking about.
Well,
Now,
all right. Well, hang on a second, because we were at the multicell. You were just talking about protozoa and plant cells. Now we're inside a sperm and egg, and you're talking about
no, we're not
gametes.
inside. We're developing these.
Well, hang on a second. So this is your
Yeah.
process of you evolving a
Mhm.
person.
Well, it's not a person. We're talking about populations.
Right.
So
Well,
it's never about
I got you.
a person. Okay.
Okay, I got you.
And so we're going to broad categories to more specific, because
Well, I
evolution
want to be
is.
human specific.
I know that you only want to go from life became from nothing, which is not true, and then somehow a bacteria turned into a person. I know you're determined to hold on to that misunderstanding. I'm
No,
determined to
well,
correct it.
well, hang on a second. Hang on, because if we are in fact here and we exist and we started
Mhm.
from the process as you said, and you guys believe we were a fish and a lizard and a monkey and an ape before we became human, you need to take that cell. If you're gonna, like, in other words, I can form an entire person in 9 months without evolution, right? So now if you're gonna claim, and I have a man and a
Actually, no,
woman
you
standing
can't,
there,
but okay.
if you're gonna, and I have a man and a woman standing here, so if you're gonna make your case, you need to at least show a duplicate process. So whether you got to tape the haploids and the diploids, whether you got to turn them into a worm, a fish, a lizard, whatever you think we were before we became human, you need to show a process to convince people. Wow. So in other words, you have to show 2 processes that form a person. Here's one from a sperm and an egg that we know is real, that takes 9 months, that everybody listening to this was formed by. Now you want to
Uh,
say there's a whole second process, guys. Hang on a second. There's a whole second
yeah,
process
there's one
that
that works on populations, not on individuals. You're talking
okay.
about one that only works on individuals, not
No,
populations.
okay. So take
A
that.
sperm
Well,
and an
hang on,
egg.
I'll give you the mic back in a minute.
A
So
sperm
hang
and
on
an
a
egg
second.
don't produce populations.
Right. They produce an entire person. So
They
what I'm
produce
saying to
an
you,
entire individual only, and the
right.
same mechanisms that you're talking about are employed by and thus part of evolution. So your argument
No,
against evolution is an argument for evolution. You just don't understand what
no,
evolution
no,
is.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. A sperm and an egg comes from an already existing man and woman, not before them. The sperm and egg, the man and the
No,
woman
there
are
were
there
sperm
that
and
produce.
egg. There were sperm and egg long before there were people.
So you think, so in the real world we live in, you're telling
Uh-huh.
me, sperm and eggs evolved and formed a person.
No.
Okay. So in the real
Well,
world, well,
not
hang on a
a
second.
person. Every
Okay.
person
You
is
think, okay.
derived from a sperm and an egg. Yes, but we're not
So
talking
you
about
think,
a single person. We're not talking
you
about
think,
an individual.
so you're saying
And
there was a population of sperm and eggs all over the earth. Is this what you're saying, Aaron? Because
in a
in the
sense,
real
it's
world,
almost similar to that. It's almost similar to that, because
Okay.
the next stage. Well, you asked me in the subthread in Facebook. You asked me what is the next stage after you carry it, and I mentioned uniconts, and then you said, "Well, what is a unicont?"
Right.
Okay. Well, a unicont is when that single cell. You can have options that the cell can have flagella on either end, and it can have multiple flagella on either end. Some have only one on either end, but in this case, we're talking about uniconts have only one flagella.
Yep.
Now, plants, if I remember correctly, plants have bicont cells, so they've got a flagella on both ends, but animals with single flagella. Then the next stage after that is opiscitant, which is the flagella is in the posterior position, meaning that it moves for propelling rather than dragging.
Yep.
Okay, so that's a sperm cell, essentially. That is the origin of a sperm cell. It's the opiscitant. So this still applies to all life forms that are descended from this lineage. Their reproductive cells have a single posterior flagella. All animals, including snakes, including people, that common ancestral form is very like a sperm cell.
Okay.
And then when you get into the next stage after that, which is holozoa, now we've got some distinctions between our familial lineage and that of mushrooms or fungus, because mushrooms, or they have a spore kind of a situation where we have sperm. So by the time we're into holozoa, now we're generally into sperm, and this is where the next stage after that is philozoa, and that's where we start seeing actual sexual characteristics begin to develop, because within philozoa there is a number of subsets where they have not only meiosis, the process I just talked about, which is differentiated from mitosis, and so they're capable, but they don't have to depend on it, because many of them are asexual, and even some vertebrates can be both asexual or.
Are we still at the cell level, or where did you go? Because you just mentioned vertebrates.
Yeah, we're still at the single cell level.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Now, when we get to the next stage after that, to apoicozoa, now we've got some things where we have things that look like collared flagellates, or that they look like colored sperm cells, and they can exist in a multicellular condition. And these can be these differentiate into gametes, which are literally sperm, or they can also become like epithelial cells, and so on. So you can build an entire animal out of apoicozoa when you get to that stage. And then the next stage after that is when these cells are. What?
Do poicozoas exist today in the world?
You are an apoicozoa, yes.
Do they exist as individual cells?
They can.
Okay. All right. That was my question.
Yeah. And now the next stage, though, metazoa, that's where they are habitually, by definition, always multicellular.
Okay.
And that metazoa is another word for animals.
Oh, so hang on a second. We were multicellular a minute ago.
Uh-huh.
Are we at animals, or are we still?
We just became multicellular now.
Okay.
At the apoicozoa stage, you can be, or that they can be multicellular or single celled. But when they get into metazoa, now they're always multicellular. So the habitually always multicellular form is metazoa. And you have very primitive stages of this, like the parazoans they're basically just almost like amoebic slugs, but they are multicellular. And then we've got sponges and so forth. These very, very primitive forms of life. So the next stage after that would be eumetazoa. And these are the more advanced animals. And then we're up to stage, what is it? I think 9.
When you say animals, do you mean cells? Because when you say animals, I picture like a kangaroo or something. Yeah,
but we're not talking about advanced animals. Matter of fact,
when you say animal, you mean like multi-cell.
Animal just means multicellular, yes.
Okay.
It's multicellular that also has an internal digestive tract. So you are a multicellular
organism. Hang on a second. You got to evolve with a digestive tract. You can't skip over this.
So I didn't skip that. That's part of the metazoa stage.
Okay.
So you have apoicozoa where they adopt multicellularity, and then you have metazoa where they not only have the multicellularity habitually all the time, but they also have this internal digestive tract. In other words, they have a place to store their food to digest it.
Well, hang on. a food to digest it. You just went from
Mhm.
multi-cell to a digestive
Yep.
tract and
Yep.
a food to digest it. You
Yep.
gotta explain that, buddy. You gotta explain. You can't
Yep.
just
I
you can't lay
kind
cells
of
down next to
was.
each other. Go ahead.
Yeah, I kind of was. The very simple cells, the parazoans that I was talking about, that's all they are. They're multicellular that simply envelop their food source, and that's it. And that applies to, oh my gosh, I forget the name of these things. Placozoans, is that it? I can't remember. And then there's sponges, and these just have channels that they're multicellular organisms where they have all these little epithelial cells lined up, basically sperm, what you're talking about, and they use their flagella instead of powering the animal now, because the flagella only works in the single cell. The flagella now powers the food supply, so it sends it through these hollow forms that it makes of its multicellularity. It funnels a traffic or a flow of water in through the system so that they can pick out microscopic food items out of that. And
Okay.
then now, so far, they don't have any kind of organs at all, including the digestive tract. The digestive tract doesn't even count as an organ. It's not
So
until you get
we're
into
still multi-cell. You haven't turned this
we're
into a fish or anything.
multicellular. Yes, we're
Okay.
multicellular. Okay, and you understand how each of these can form. There's just a subset of the thing before it. It's the original form, and then you have two different forms. One that's still maybe one is still the same. Maybe there's two different ones, but they're still a subset of whatever their ancestors were. They didn't become something else. They became a more refined, a more precise, a more specific subset. Descent with inherent modification. Got that?
Tracking.
Okay. So then the next level after that would be eumetazoa, which is the more advanced animals. And this is where some of them don't have any organs at all, but they're not as primitive as sponges, or I'm not sure placozoan is not the word for it. I wish I could remember what the real word is. But anyway, we have things that can mill about, again, still using cilia or whatever. They don't, and most of them don't have any organs at all yet, but they still have means of some of them to produce light and to ingest food, although they're eating and digesting and pooping out all from the same hole, because they don't have the tract is not all the way through the body yet. So that, I think, comes from the there's a couple more stages down, but this is all very kind of dense biology. And when I asked you about this, I was trying to show the basics of how
Okay.
evolution works, which is why I wanted to bring up snakes and why I asked you about snakes. Because if we can look at evolution of various different nodes. We mentioned dogs a little bit ago, and then I pushed it up from domestic dogs to general canids. And so I said, well, there's only two clades that the Bible talks about very specifically that actually gives you the origin of that clade, the crown of the clade, the common ancestor from which everything else descends. That's humans and snakes. Those are the only two things. So we could use the origin of snakes to explain evolution from there, if you accept the Bible description of the origin of snakes. And then you balked at that. You said you didn't accept that.
No, because you what you asked me didn't make sense. The snake in the garden in Genesis 3 is not talking about evolution. And I replied to you in our comments, you can't say Genesis 3 is talking about snakes, and then unless you acknowledge a talking snake, Aaron, right? Because the snake beguiled the woman.
I don't have to accept your mythology to
No,
use it.
no. Wait, hang on a second. If you're going to go to Genesis 3 and say it's talking about evolution, it's not mythology. You don't have to believe it, but in the context of what's being said, it's not in any way talking about snake evolution. The Bible
It
doesn't talk about
absolutely
evolution.
is.
It is absolutely not.
It absolutely is, because it
Genesis
talks
3.
about.
Genesis 3 is God rebuking Satan for
No, it isn't.
causing Adam and Eve to sin. Yes, it
No, it
is.
isn't.
And it
No, it
says,
isn't.
we know the verse, so I'll just state it.
Yeah,
I
we
will put,
do. Well, I
I will,
do,
well,
but no, it
I will
isn't.
put enmity between your seed and the seed of the woman. The woman
Yep.
doesn't have the seed, so that's speaking of the virgin birth of Jesus Christ. You will crush.
No,
You will bruise
no,
his.
it's not.
You will
Because
bruise his
because
heel.
the
Oh,
very
hang on a
next
second.
line after that disproves you.
No,
Because
it
it
doesn't.
can't be. because the
Does the
sons
woman
of
have a
men
seed,
will
Aaron?
step,
Does the woman have a seed? Does the woman
and
have the
so does the
seed?
man.
Does the woman have the seed? Who passes the
No,
seed, man? Or
the woman
a
has the
woman
egg. The
doesn't have a
seed,
seed, so that's
traditionally,
speaking.
the seed, according to the Bible, always refers to sperm. So in that case, they're talking about the
Does
guy.
woman have sperm? That's the seed of the woman. That's the virgin birth of Jesus.
That's
You're
the
going to put him
egg.
to the cross, but he's going to
That's the
ultimately
egg.
crush you when he's going to ultimately crush you.
Has nothing to do with Jesus. You understand that Genesis was not written by Christians, right?
You or me, all we have to go by is what we have, what's in front of us. So you can make a claim.
Well, I have a lot more in front of me than you
Okay.
do. So when it says that what will happen to the descendants of the serpent and also to the descendants of Eve, I mean, God says to the serpent, because you've done this, cursed are you above all livestock and above all wild animals. You will crawl on your belly and you will eat dust all of the days of your life.
Yeah.
Is that talking about Satan?
Yes.
When is the first time Satan is ever mentioned by name? Because I mean, Genesis never makes reference to Satan as a character.
Okay, well, it mentions the serpent.
It
right?
mentions snakes, yes,
It
but it
mentions the
doesn't
serpent. No,
confuse.
wait.
It doesn't
says the serpent.
conflate.
Well, hang on.
It doesn't.
Well, hang on a
It
second.
does not. It does not conflate the
Aaron,
serpent
I'm
with
sorry,
Satan.
Aaron. Hang on a second, Aaron. It says the serpent was more cunning than anyone else. So you
Any of
think a snake?
God's
Are you
creations.
also? If you're
So,
going to quote the Bible, you can't leave out the parts you don't like. So you can't
that's right.
say the
I
snake.
don't, and neither
You
can
can't say
you.
the snake. Well, hang
So,
on. Let me just go ahead. You speak.
okay.
You can't say the snake was more cunning and it was talking, and then say it was evolution, because then you would have to explain talking snakes and beguiling snakes in the real world. This is not talking about snake evolution.
Well,
But
one would think that when you come to a fairy tale in which we have cursed fruit and magical enchantments, that when we have a talking animal, that maybe we wouldn't believe that this is literal history. But here we are. There are people who do believe that.
Yeah,
But when it's
absolutely. Amen,
talking
brother.
about, when it says that the serpent was more crafty or more subtle
Yeah.
than any of God's other animals that he created, well, we understand that we're talking about the animals that God created, whatever the hell crafty or subtle means. And so when God then says, because of this, because of what you've done, you, the serpent, are going to be are going to have to crawl on your belly all of the rest of your days, and that you're going to have to eat dust.
Yeah.
And then he said he's going to put enmity between you and the woman, and between you and your offspring and hers.
A satanic offspring. Yeah.
Well, we don't have satanic offspring. It's devils don't have children, do they?
Yes, they do. Because if you look at Aaron,
hang on a second,
Aaron,
crawl on their bellies. They crawl on their bellies. Do they crawl on their bellies?
Aaron,
do they?
go to Genesis 6. I'm sorry, I don't mean it. I'm sorry.
Aaron, do they crawl on their bellies?
Aaron,
yeah.
Go to Genesis 6. Does who crawl on their bellies?
What?
Does who crawl on their bellies?
You want this to be Satan? Does Satan crawl on his belly all the rest of his days?
It's the serpent. Yeah, he's gonna crawl. Yeah,
he's gonna crawl on his belly all the rest of his days.
No, and I know you're gonna say he presented himself before Job, and I know you're gonna say he prowls around like a roaring lion. So you're gonna say that. So
belly, was he? As a matter of fact, when
well,
Satan
what does that have to do with evolution?
Satan is mentioned. Have you noticed that Satan doesn't come up anywhere in the Pentateuch? Not in Genesis, not in Exodus, not in Numbers, not in Deuteronomy. Satan doesn't show up at all, period, until we get out of the Pentateuch, and all the way until we get to Job. That's the first time in that compilation when we hear the name Satan. Okay. And what does the Bible always say that Satan is doing at that time? Walking.
Going to and fro, up and down.
Yes.
Yeah. To and fro.
More importantly, God and Satan haven't even had a falling out yet.
Oh, they sure have in Genesis 3, Aaron.
They don't. Because Genesis 3 was written by different people talking about different things. Genesis 3 was written by a different author talking about different things. And it does, and these mentioned in Job and later do not.
How did you verify anything you just said? How did you verify?
They do not even allow that the Bible could be talking about Satan as opposed to snakes. The Bible's very clear. They are talking about the origin of snakes, not devils.
I'm sorry, Aaron.
Satan does not. Aaron,
Aaron, I'm
Satan
sorry I
does,
keep saying it.
Satan does not crawl on his belly all the rest of his days. You can at least concede that much?
I can at least concede that much, and I can see that he's
Okay, so
not
then we're not talking about
localized in
Satan
one
here.
place.
And then when
Okay,
it says that we have
well, hang on.
seed,
We're talking about a serpent, a talking serpent that beguiled Adam and Eve.
yeah,
So
because
that
we're
you can't.
talking about a fairy tale. It's a
Okay,
fable.
so
It's not
wait a
real.
second.
That's
Wait a
why
second.
animals can
Aaron,
talk and why there's magic enchantments.
Aaron. When you try to make a point, you use the Bible. When I counter the point from that same Bible, you don't like it. So
But you
hang
don't
on now. Let me
counter the
just tell
point.
you, Aaron.
You didn't counter the
If we're
point.
talking about a fairy, Aaron, if we're
Yeah.
talking about a fairy tale, we're keeping time since the birth of Jesus, 2024 years ago. 1 year, 2025 years ago is a time known as BC, before Christ. That makes
You know
Jesus
why?
a real person. We're keeping time since his
You know
birth,
why?
Aaron.
Of course you don't know why. Let me tell you why. Because Pope Gregory in the 1600s decided
What
to
year? What
arbitrarily.
year? What year did Pope Gregory?
I could look it up. I can only have it. I
No,
think it's
just give me a
1674.
give me a guess. Give me a guess.
Well, I don't need to give you a guess. I've got the actual data.
Good. Okay.
It took me a second to pull it up. I believe it was around 1674.
Okay.
But yeah.
Well, hang on a
But
second.
anyway, because
Well, hang on. Can I just counter that point? How could
no, I know what you're going to think you're going to do, but you're not going to do it.
Well, I'm going to say that how could it be recorded in 1674 if the timeline of Jesus was not already in place? So you use the
Add
timeline of Jesus to try to discredit the timeline of Jesus. You
add
can't use
45.
you
Add
can't
40.
use 1674 years from what event, Aaron?
Add 45 years to whatever date you've got from the Gregorian calendar, and that would be the Julian calendar. So
All right.
all Pope Gregory did was alter the Julian calendar, pushing it back by 45 years, and then backdating it, because at the time people weren't heavy into using calendars. Every year was kind of the same as every other year for most people. So he created a date, and arbitrarily he tried to figure out when Jesus was born, but the conflicting information, it cannot be reconciled. Jesus was supposed to be born before the death of Herod in 4 BC, and simultaneously also after the census of Quirinus 10 years later. So Pope Gregory, having no way to reconcile this contradiction, simply chose a date in the middle and called it 0.
Okay, well, hang on a second. Are you vouching for Pope Gregory? His trying to figure out the exact year of Jesus' birth, because you're vouching for Pope Gregory, and Pope Gregory was vouching for Jesus. So in a
No,
roundabout way,
nobody's
you're
vouching for
vouching for
anybody.
Jesus. In a roundabout way,
Nobody is vouching for anybody.
Aaron, in an indirect Aaron, in an indirect way, you just acknowledged.
Pope Gregory made up baseless speculation and called it fact. That's what religion is all about.
Aaron, how come 1600 years later people were still talking about Jesus with no internet, no technology, no nothing? People persecuted, beheadings, fed to lions. How come people were still talking about this guy? Aaron,
How
we're
come
keeping time.
centuries
Well, hang on.
before
Let me
that
just finish this up.
how come centuries before that they were already talking about Ahura Mazda and Lord Krishna and
Okay, go ahead.
dozens of other gods that they're still talking about now? That there's hundreds of millions of people who still believe in those gods, by the way.
Aaron, who's talking about Krishna, the other guy, Odin? I hear all these other names. Aaron, every debate is centered around Jesus. Excuse me, hang on a second.
This debate
you may have some.
this,
You may
this
have
discussion between you and me has
Yeah.
nothing to do with Jesus. We're talking about the origin of snakes, and you've confused that with the Satan character who doesn't even appear until many chapters later, and it's chronologically after this event. I'm sure we agree on that. And he's walking. He's not eating dust. He's not producing children, and there's no enmity between the woman and the man. This is the important part I was trying to get to before. Between the offspring of men and the offspring of the serpent, mankind, he being men, will crush your head, the descendants of the serpent, and say that again. And you will strike his heel.
Correct.
So that obviously works for snakes, doesn't work for devils.
No, it actually does, because Jesus
it
is
actually doesn't. And one of the reasons that it doesn't is because not only does it precisely give an origin for snakes by description, it also calls them the serpent. It never refers to Satan. It cannot even be Satan. And the description is for serpents, not for devils. And there's no description of devils that matches this.
Okay, so let me just tie a few points together. So in the book of Job, which you referenced, where Satan is first mentioned, it says the sons of God. Where were you when the sons of God shouted for joy at the creation? So the sons of God are the son. We're not sons of God. If you believe the Bible, I know you don't. We're sons of Adam. The sons of God is always referred to as the angelic host of heaven. So from Genesis
So the
3,
sons of God.
well, hang on a second.
We are not. Okay.
We're not.
So
we are sons
Jesus
of Adam.
didn't say that we
We're
are
not
brothers.
We're not direct creations
Okay.
of God. We are the sons of God is always a reference to the angels or the fallen angels. So now in Genesis 3, I'll give you my interpretation. So there's enmity between your seed, the serpent, you don't want to call him Satan, and okay, and the seed of the woman. The woman doesn't have the seed. That's speaking of Jesus. This is my interpretation.
The
So
seed is for both
those two are
together.
gonna. Well,
It's
hang on a
not
second.
talking about
Those
it's
two are
not
gonna be at.
it is not talking about a specific
Okay,
egg or
we're not going to
sperm.
agree on that point.
They
but
didn't
now
discover the human egg until the 1800s. Okay, but they
correct.
knew about the
So how do they know
seed
to put
of
this in there?
man.
How do they know to
knew
put
about
this
the
in
seed
there?
of man. So when it's talking about the seed, it's talking about sperm.
Right, the
So that's
offspring.
what they knew.
Aaron, the offspring.
Yeah.
So now,
very good.
So now, Aaron,
But
the
when
sons
he
of God.
spilled
Hang on a
his
second.
seed, when he spilled his seed on the ground and God killed him, that seed was not people. That wasn't his children.
Mhm.
That was
That was an
sperm,
individual.
and it was
That was
quite
an
literal,
individual.
right?
Right, but that
So it
seed,
was a
that seed
reference
was
to seed, and it's talking about sperm. You can also use
Aaron.
the context that the products of your sperm being your children and eventually your grandchildren. But in no case is Genesis 3 talking about devils.
It's
It
talking
wasn't
about the
devil, it
serpent.
was
Aaron.
serpent.
It's
Right,
talking
it was
about a
the
serpent.
serpent. It was the serpent that was first. It was the serpent that was cursed to crawl on its belly all the rest of its days. It was
Okay,
the
the serpent, a fallen angel.
serpent. It was the serpent, and not angels, not devils, that people step on their heads. And it's the serpent that bruises your heel. It's not devils that do that.
Okay,
It's the
all right.
serpent. That's
Okay,
why the book says serpent and
right.
not devil.
Okay, all right, Aaron. So now we go to Genesis 6. There's enmity between my interpretation. We go to Genesis 6. The
The
sons
fuck
of
does that
God,
got to do with this?
the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were beautiful, that they went into them, and that, excuse me, that the woman bore them giants. So here's what happened.
Poetic.
Well, hang on a second. Here's what happened. God rebuked Satan. You don't believe this, but I'm giving my interpretation.
Yeah,
God
it's
said,
not just
somebody,
that I don't believe this.
I
We
got
can prove
somebody,
that
listen,
none of that happened.
here's what happened. God told
Here's
Satan,
what
I got
didn't
some,
happen. That's a
God,
myth, and we know for certain
Aaron,
and can prove. We know for certain and can prove that none of that happened.
You don't know for certain anything, Aaron.
Yeah,
All we have
do.
is
We
what's in
do.
front of
We
us.
do. This one we
All we
know
have
for
what's in
certain.
front of us.
This one we know for certain, because not only is there no evidence for it, but there's a profound amount of evidence against it. And the best apologists I've ever come across that have tried to address this, the only thing they could do was tell me that, hey, maybe we live in a matrix universe where everything is a false past, where we have false memories, and nothing ever happened in history, and you just think it did. So none of your evidence is valid. And my counterpoint to that is, well, in that case, flood didn't happen then either, because it's a false history. So even in alternative reality, it still didn't happen. That makes it absolute. We know for certain this didn't happen. We can prove it. And I would like to get back to the topic, please. We're talking about evolution. We're not
The sons
talking
of
about
God.
mythology. We're not talking about the flood.
The sons of God saw the daughters of men. They went into them. They corrupted the entire human bloodline. That's what happened. God told Satan, I got somebody coming for you. So the sons of God, their plan was to corrupt the entire human population so that there could be no seed of a woman. So the entire earth was corrupted. Our genetics were corrupted by the fallen angels. If you read further, it says,
Bible
Noah
scholars interpret this a number of
Noah was found pure in his generations. Noah's bloodline was not corrupted. That's why Noah came through the flood. What God killed in the flood was a satanic offspring. All the life was contaminated. The beast, everything were. So that
Oh,
continues.
wait.
That
The
seed
beast
war,
were contaminated?
the beast of the
How,
air. Yeah, that's
how,
not that's in
how
Jasher.
were the
That's in
beasts
by the fallen
contaminated?
angels. That's in the book of Jasher. That would explain your chupacabras, your Bigfoots, all of those kind of things that people see. They
All
don't know
those
how to
other
make
things that don't exist?
that would explain them. That's a biblical
That would
explanation.
explain why
That's
they don't exist?
well, you could believe they don't, but there's other people that do.
I can
There's
know that they don't.
okay, you can say you
I
can't
can
possibly
know
know
that
they don't.
they don't.
You could feel that they don't, but you can't know that they
I
don't.
can know that they
You could
don't.
feel like nothing happened, but you can't know
I
it, and neither can
I
I. All we
can
can do is compare.
know and show and demonstrate and effectively
You
prove that
cannot. You
didn't
cannot. You
happen.
cannot. You
I have
cannot.
already done so. I have a playlist of at least a dozen videos showing how various different scientific applications, even mythology, even archaeology and anthropology and geology and meteorology, everything disproves the flood.
Oh, I'm
All
not
these
talking about
different
the
fields
flood. I'm not
absolutely
talking about the flood.
disprove the flood.
I'm not talking about the
I
flood. I
know.
thought we were talking about
Now you're
Bigfoots.
talking about a
I was
misunderstanding that Bible
If
scholars contradict you on the way that you're talking about the giants or the Nephilim or the
yeah,
high ones,
correct.
of
Correct.
Babylon, which is
Aaron,
the
do you know that Jesus
if
said
I
it would
can,
be like the
if I
days of Noah?
hold on, if I can
Aaron,
interrupt real quick, Mike,
Aaron.
Mike,
Aaron, I'm sorry, buddy. That's an
Mike,
accident, bro. I'm hard-headed.
Mike,
Yes,
if
go
I
ahead.
can interrupt real quick, you need to give
Go ahead,
Arn
buddy.
the chance to speak because he's trying to explain to you things. You overtalk him and then say he didn't explain anything. You didn't hear the explanation.
Yeah.
This is the problem if you're not wearing headphones. It might not be your fault.
Yeah.
This is a problem with StreamYard. You need to let Arn finish when he's explaining something to you.
Let me jump to some comments here. So let's reason. Ask the question for Mike. Hi, Mike. Are you confused between abiogenesis and evolution? I think we definitely established that.
No,
and then,
my answer is neither one are real.
well, you believe in abiogenesis. You just don't realize
Aaron,
it, and you believe in
can you?
evolution too. You just don't realize it because you don't know what
I,
either of them is.
Aaron, I disproved evolution. I
No, you
disproved it right.
didn't, because
Aaron,
did you?
we made
Okay, then how do
history.
we get Dalmatians?
Aaron,
How
I
did we?
disproved it.
How did we derive
okay.
Dalmatians?
I disproved it as an explanation for our existence. I have a
How
man and a
did we
woman
get?
standing here.
Then, if that were the case, then you would
It is
have
the
an
case.
alternate. You would have an alternate scientific explanation for how we got Dalmatians and why Dalmatians are different from Dachshunds.
Aaron,
What is that process?
I have no idea. Aaron, can you
It's
evolve?
called
Aaron,
evolution.
Aaron, evolve a heart for
Do
me.
you accept? Yes or
Aaron,
no?
no,
Do you accept? Yes or no? That Dachshunds and Dalmatians both derive from domestic dogs, which in turn were derived from wolves.
Okay, so I'm going to answer that, and then I'm going to ask you a follow-up question. So my answer is I have no idea. But now, do you accept that you skipped the whole process of
Do you
evolving a dog?
understand?
Evolve the
do you
dog's
understand-
Aaron, evolve the dog's kidney, evolve the heart, evolve the hoof, the eyes.
The heart and the kidney came a long time before the dogs, and I can explain all
the
that
heart and the
too.
kidney came before the dog. You still have to evolve it. You have to
Way
form the
before
dog.
this. There's an entire genetic lineage. I did a 50-part playlist on this, explaining all of this from microbes to men. All of it in videos that average about 10 minutes each. Yes, I did.
Aaron.
What?
Shit, I forgot my point, man. Sorry.
Do wolves have kidneys?
Yeah.
Do wolves have hearts?
Yes.
So if I'm going to derive Dalmatians and I'm going to derive Dachshunds, they don't have to separately derive hearts and kidneys, now do they?
No, they're all. That was my
Your
point.
ancestors already had.
Hang on a second.
Before there were Dalmatians. Before there were wait. Before there were Dalmatians, before there were Dachshunds, there was a common ancestor that already had hearts and kidneys, right?
Where did you get the hearts and kidneys and common ancestor?
From way before that common ancestor.
An hour ago, we were at the multicellular. Why do you cut me off? You cut me off. You don't let me talk. So an hour ago, we were at the multicellular level, and now you're at dogs and Dalmatians. You skipped all the evolution in between. If you'd like to pick it up,
skip it. If you want to, I can go through all of it.
Go through it.
It'll
form
be
a dog.
boring
Evolve a dog.
but I can go through all of it.
Evolve a dog, but Aaron.
It's not a dog, because we're not talking about individuals. We're talking about populations.
Right. So, okay. So turn a population of cells into a population of humans, Aaron. You were at the
Well, we already
multicellular
turned a
organism
population
level.
of cells into a
Aaron,
population
the,
of animals. You accept we
Aaron,
got that far?
you understand the best you can do is pull a draw with me. I can form a person. I can
No,
form
the
the
best I can
heart.
do is
I can,
utterly trounce you into unconsciousness. That's the best I can do.
no, no,
I'm
no,
trying
no,
to be
no. I can
merciful.
form a
You
person.
don't know what you're talking about
I
ever
do know
at
what
all. Not
I'm,
about evolution, nor about your own theology either. Bible scholars contradict you
no,
constantly.
they don't.
You're
No,
interpreting.
they don't.
Yes, they do. I know several of them. Yes, they do.
No,
You don't know your own side of the story. You don't know fuck all about mine, but you don't even know your own side. I have to know both sides better than you know your own alone.
you don't know my side. You have no idea my side because you're
Yes, I
denying it.
do.
You're quoting
I
from
have
it. You're
studied this
Aaron,
shit for way too long.
you're
I
quoting the
know
parts
your
you like.
side better than you do. You
Aaron,
don't know your side.
Aaron, you're quoting the part you like and leaving out the parts you don't like. And you
What
won't
part
let me
don't I
talk or
like?
finish. You the talking serpent, the beguiling serpent. You're
Why
leaving
would I
that part out and you're trying to say
why
the
would I
snake.
why do I not like that, and why would I admit I didn't omit that. I addressed
You
it because I
you use
like
the
that part.
you
It's
use the
so
timeline of
fucking
Jesus to
stupid,
discredit the
but I
timeline of
like that
Jesus.
part. Okay, nobody can hear both of us. Do I just shut up and let you randle nonsense?
This is a problem,
Do
Mike.
you maybe stop talking at some point so that I can give you correct information that you can look up and verify?
Yeah, Mike, you need to calm down. Arn explained a couple of things to you, and then you said he didn't explain it, but you didn't hear it
No, he didn't.
because you yourself were talking. That means that
Yeah.
Arn then is muted on your end. You do not hear Arn's explanation. So you need to let Arn finish because you're not wearing headphones. This is a problem on your end, so you need to help fix that.
Yeah,
Okay.
the next comment is from Dara O'Kane, who says, ask Mike why the Catholic Church and other Christians accept evolution, Edenism is a moral story, not a history text. To take the story literally undermines its eternal moral. It cuts off there, but I'm guessing undermines its eternal moral. Matter of fact, that's correct. I know several Christians who are champions of evolutionary theory, and some of them that are. One of them is a Pentecostal preacher, and he says that to take the Bible literally is to distort its original meaning, its moral meaning, the true meaning of the Bible. I've also interviewed.
That's his opinion.
What?
I said that's his opinion. I just said that's his opinion.
Okay, so the experts are just coming down to opinion, and the things that we can prove to be true, that's just opinion too.
You can't prove, Aaron, you cannot evolve a person without a sperm and a cell.
Yes, I can. Yes, I can. You
So the
cannot
process.
you cannot magically conjure someone out of nothing, but we can show how humans evolved by evolution. Yes, we can.
Aaron, in the real world, a person is formed in 9 months.
Not the
in
magic.
The real world,
Not the magical world where you have talking animals.
Aaron, if your process was real, there would be 2 processes that form a person. Everything you're saying is in lieu of an actual process. It takes 9 months.
It's not. It's using the process.
Aaron, take your single cell. Aaron, take your single cell. And are they? That's why I asked: are they available in the world today? And if they are,
yes.
Are they turning into anything? There should be all kinds of new animals, new and exciting things from a single cell. It doesn't take 14 quadrillion years to form a person. It takes 9 months. It takes 9 months from head to toe, Aaron. That's all it takes.
Can you shut up for a minute?
Go ahead, buddy. I want you to evolve.
Literally every sentence you've said is demonstrably wrong. Every single sentence. But you don't realize that. You don't shut the fuck up. And therefore you can't hear me.
Go ahead, man. I'm waiting on the person to be.
That's all through. That's all through evolution. We have that everywhere in evolution. The process you're talking about is for individuals, and we use that also in the evolutionary level, which is for populations. So that second process, that's evolution. The one that you said that didn't exist, that's evolution. The one that derives Dalmatians and Dachshunds from a common ancestral dog, that's evolution. Now, would you say that God created Dalmatians? Did God create Dachshunds and Pekingese?
I would
Did
say
he?
God created everything. So I would say God created
So
everything.
you're
Yeah.
saying God created. So Noah had on his ark, he had a pair of Pekingese and a pair of Dachshunds and a pair of Dalmatians and a
No,
pair
I
of
would
German
say
Shepherds.
no. I would say that's genetic variation, as you mentioned.
Evolution. Thank you.
No, no, no,
Genetic
no.
variation
Dog
at the
breeding,
level
genetic
of
variation.
genetic
Nobody thinks.
variation at that genetic variation at the level of populations. That's what evolution is.
Aaron, if you want to call me, if you want to call Morgan Freeman, Carrot Top, and Jackie Chan evolution, you feel free to. All that is genetic variation. That's all that
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
with no
So I'm going to go to
explanation for where they came from.
Okay. So
That,
I'm
all
going
that
to.
is red hair, Chinese eyes, and black skin. That's genetic variation. That's what I'm agreeing to. I don't deny
Okay.
that. But I
Okay.
want you.
So,
But you have no
hold
idea
on.
where.
Hold on.
Go
Wait,
ahead.
wait, wait, wait. There's an introductory primer for people who don't know fuck all about what evolution is. It's made for like high school students to learn what evolution is. The definition given, and this is from UC California, University of California, Berkeley. Biological evolution, simply put, is descent with inherent modification. Remember when I told you that? This definition includes everything from small-scale evolution, for example, changes in the frequency of genetic variations in a population from one generation to the next, to large-scale evolution, for example, the descent of different species from a shared ancestor over many generations. You get that? So the genetic variation in populations that will derive domestic dogs from wolves, and then within domestic dogs derives dachshunds and Pekingese and Dalmatian. There's a word for that. It was just defined. It's called evolution. That's what that is. And you agree, evolution happens currently and is still going on. You just don't know what the fuck it is.
Aaron, I disprove it. Evolve
How
something
can
from
you disprove
Aaron.
what you accept happens? All right, how did you
Evolving
disprove? How
Aaron.
did you wait? How did you disprove that dachshunds are genetically
No.
related to Dalmatians?
I didn't disprove genetic variation. What I did
Which is
is
what
Aaron.
evolution is.
Oh, okay. So if you want to, but because for some reason we talked about God, for some reason people think evolution is the explanation for our existence. It's not.
Yeah,
For some
evolution
reason,
is the
for
explanation
some
of
reason, for
biodiversity.
some reason, when I ask you to form a person, you talk about God and mud and everything. For some reason, I show how a person is formed. I can form a heart. You can't. I can form a kidney. You can't. I can form a set
No,
of
we
eyeballs.
can.
You
We
can't.
can. We can do them individually, in fact.
I could form an entire
But
person
that
in
wouldn't
9
be
months.
evolution.
Right. I
The
could
way
form
that
that.
we would
So,
form
okay,
these
well, hang on a
individually,
second. Well, hang on a second.
the
Because
way that we would perform these individually is not evolution. We're trying to talk. We're talking about the way evolution forms these things naturally. I'm going to get to another comment. Dara O'Kane, ask Mike why. Okay, we read that one, and that's an important point. Why is it that all these people who have doctorate degrees in biology, and they're also traditional theologians, so like Kenneth Miller is a traditional Catholic, Francis Collins is director of the National Institutes of Health, who was formerly the director of the Human Genome Project. He's an evangelical Christian, paleontologist. Robert T. Bacher, Pentecostal preacher, right? And then Theodosius Dobzhansky, the geneticist who first demonstrated macroevolution in the lab, who wrote a paper in 1973 saying nothing in biology makes sense except in light of evolution. He was an Orthodox Christian. How do you explain how everybody who knows both sides of this better than you do disagree with you?
Aaron, why are you appealing to Christians? Why are you appealing to Christians?
Because it appeals to you.
Why are you appealing? It doesn't appeal to me because they're wrong. Because if I was to have this debate with them,
every expert, everyone who knows
second.
better than you is
No.
wrong.
Well, hang on a
You know
second.
more about subjects you've never studied
than
the best educated expert specialist anywhere ever. You know better than they do about things you've never even looked up the definition for.
Aaron, does a sperm and an egg comes together and forms an entire person in 9 months. So we have a known process that forms a person. We have a
And we have a
known
known
process.
process that
We have
does
a
it. It's
known
called
process to compare.
evolution.
Wait, we have a known process to compare your process to, but you can't demonstrate a process.
But
Everything
we
you said,
can demonstrate a
every,
process, and
every,
regularly
Aaron, if you were able to
Ah.
demonstrate the process, you would be able to form a person from a different start point. You would be able to demonstrate it, but you can't. You cannot form a person. Everything you said,
that wouldn't
protozoa,
be evolution.
you cannot form a person. You
That
cannot
would
form a
not be,
person
if we were
with
to
your
form a
process.
person.
Aaron, everything you said,
we can do what you're saying, but that
You
wouldn't be
can.
evolution, because evolution is a different process than would be required to alternately, without using the traditional sperm and egg. We can do that, but that wouldn't be
You can.
evolution. You still don't know what evolution is.
You could
You're
take a
still
single.
reject- You could look up the definition for it. We've already talked about it. You accept that dachshunds and Dalmatians and Pekingese and so forth are all genetically descended from a common ancestral dog, which was in turn derived from Asiatic wolves. So you accept evolution. You just won't call it that. You have to call it something else, because you have to keep yourself deceived.
No, Aaron. Okay, so if you're going to say I accept that, you accept that you can't evolve. You can't evolve a dog, a Pekingese or
Yes,
anything, or a German Shepherd.
We did.
Aaron, you're telling me right now on your live, you're telling me you could take a cell and produce it and turn it. Well, I'll stay with the person as a better visual. You could take a single cell and form an entire human being, just like the process that forms from a sperm and an egg in 9 months. You could take a cell and do something similar, the same thing. Aaron, you're delusional.
That would be cloning.
You're delusional.
That wouldn't
Aaron,
be evolution.
You're delusional.
There are differences that
That's
you
delusion.
refuse to understand. It's not that you just don't want to know this. That's why
it's not that I don't want it. I just disproved it. It's not real.
No, you didn't.
You can't.
Okay.
Aaron, I could form the entire person, and you can't. I could form the skull, the ribs, the kidneys. You can't form anything.
And I can show that by evolution too, and you won't learn anything because you won't shut the fuck up.
Yeah,
it's impossible
to
fill a glass that is already full. I can't fill your glass with knowledge because it's already full of bullshit.
Okay.
Mike,
next comment.
Mike, hold on, Aaron. Mike, you need to calm down. Otherwise, we need to mute you so at least the audience can hear Aaron when he's explaining something to you while you're over talking him. This isn't going to work this way. You need to let Aaron finish his explanation. If it happens,
you have to understand that ignorance is not a superpower.
Yeah, I will have to mute you so at least the audience can hear Aaron's explanation. You can go back later to the video to hear what you missed.
So, Miss K, question for the creationist. How exactly did God made Eve from a rib with male DNA?
Is it my turn to talk? I have no idea how no Christian claims to know how God created any of us. Evolutionists claim there's a process called evolution, and they cannot form a person. They cannot form a person.
We can.
You're hurting, buddy. I know this hurts. Aaron, when has there been a duplicate process of a person being formed from a single cell? When has this been done?
It's called cloning, but that would not be evolution.
Right. Okay. So when has a single cell?
Because evolution. Because evolution is genetic variation in reproductive populations over many generations, and you're asking me to evolve a person individually, instantaneously, no population, no generation. So you want it show me evolution without it being evolution. Don't let it be evolution. Let it be something else. That's what you're asking for.
Aaron, so in other words, in the real world, and I don't mean this disrespect.
In the real world where you don't live, evolution is populations.
All right. Okay. So
populations over generations. And yes, we did evolve dogs. That's where dogs came from. We evolved them. Populations over many generations, not the way you're talking about.
All right. So, Aaron, take a population of cells and turn it into a population of humans. And if you got to turn it into a fish, lizard, monkey first, if you're going to claim there's a duplicate process and you could show it, you show it.
And we can.
Okay, so turn a fish into a person.
Let me go through this little thing that you said, because this could be some source of amusement too. You said a fish, a monkey, or a
Whatever
lizard.
none of it's real,
Right.
but you guys think that.
You don't think fish and monkeys and lizards are real?
No, they're real, but they were never part of us. We were always human.
Well,
But I
you're
know
right
you
about the
guys.
lizard.
I know you guys think fish, and I know you think we were a fish and we turned into a lizard and
What's a
whatever else.
fish? No, we
Just a
didn't.
fish.
I don't think we turned into a lizard. That never happened.
Okay,
What's
okay.
a fish?
What's that?
What is a fish?
There's other evolutionists who think that we were once a fish
What is
before
a
we were
fish?
human. I don't
What
know.
is a
A fish.
fish?
A goldfish. I don't know. I don't have a definition for you.
A fish is a goldfish?
Whatever you want to say, Aaron.
So a tuna is not a goldfish. So then a tuna is not a fish?
Sure. I have no idea. None of this is turning a fish
I grant
into a
that you
person.
have no idea. That's been
It's
painfully obvious since before this conversation began.
Aaron, pick a fish and turn it into a human. What fish do you think we came from?
Okay, we'll have to go back about 360 million years, but yeah, we can get there.
You got to hide behind time. You got to hide behind time. You're hiding behind time.
Populations over many generations.
I'll spot you to the fish. Turn it into a human.
What is a fish?
I don't have a definition. I don't know.
Okay, I do.
Oh, good.
Now, taxonomically, a fish is a chordate. The fish, there's no taxonomically consistent definition for fish because some people would say that they're cold-blooded and scaly and so forth, except that not all fish are cold-blooded. Believe it or not all fish are scaly. The things that we would traditionally call fish, some of them have a means of, to some degree, maintaining their body temperature. Not all of them have scales and so forth. So a fish, taxonomically, we replace the word fish with the word chordate, which means anything that has a spinal cord is a chordate. Do you have a spinal cord?
Sure.
Okay, then in a colloquial sense, then you would be a fish. Do you know what a monkey is?
I mean, I could picture one in my head. I kind of know what they are, but I don't have a definition for you.
There's specific definitions for that too. Lots of them. Okay, so but a monkey is a subset of primate that has certain characteristics, like that they have fingernails, that they have binocular color vision, that they have 2 pectoral mammae, that they have specifically these type of ears that we have, you and I,
similar
and an untethered dangling penis, for example. There's a whole list of criteria to be a monkey, and we meet all of them.
So we have similar features, basically.
No, we are by definition. We are monkeys. We are in
by a man-made definition.
We are yes. Men have figured out that these are the categories, these are the classifications. This is what the word monkey means.
Okay.
It's any member of the taxonomic suborder Anthropoidea, also known as Simiiformes. So the word monkey means any member of that group, and that includes us.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. That means nothing. That means nothing.
Everything, but that's fine. You just continue.
Well, hang on, because we were, we're jumping all over. I'm trying to get you to.
You want to look up what the definition of what a monkey is? You can look it up on your own. You want to look up the definition of evolution? I showed it to you, and you said no, and then tried to make it.
Aaron, that's not Aaron. I said it's genetic variation. We talked about dogs.
That you refused to allow that it was populations over generations. You refuse to allow both of those. You want an individual.
No, because I gave you multiple times.
Not only that, but you said
I gave you multiple times.
One man.
Aaron, I gave you multiple. Aaron, I said turn a population of cells into a population of humans. So I gave you your population. Okay. So go ahead, turn it into a fish if you got it first.
Then
turn it into a fish.
Then we definitely do have the process by which that can happen. We definitely do have that.
By the process, it can happen or did happen, because I could form a person. Aaron, both
can and did. So I'm going to read another comment for you.
Go ahead, man.
Supercilious Pseudonym offers $20 and says, for Mike, if I asked you to disprove a Muslim or Hindu belief based on their scripture, how would you go about doing that? Try turning that logic on your own beliefs. If it is true, it should hold up under rigorous testing. How would you address that?
I don't understand the question 100%, but go ahead. Well, read it in pieces. Read it in stages, please.
If I asked you to disprove a Muslim or a Hindu belief based on their scripture,
right?
How would you go about doing that?
Well, it would depend on what the scripture was. It would, I mean, there's obvious things you can disprove, and then there's some things that are
Give me an
philosophical.
example.
Okay, so if somebody was to say I'm a Muslim and they base their belief on Muhammad, I can contrast the timeline of Jesus that was so everything Jesus taught was against man's nature. So in other words, we're keeping time since his birth. We're keeping time
Except
since
that we're not.
okay. Well, if this is my answer. We're keeping time since
Yeah,
the birth of
but
a
the
man.
fact is,
Well, hang on a second.
hold
You want
on.
me to answer?
The documented fact is we did not keep time based on Jesus's birth.
All right,
That
what
was
does BC stand for?
That was over 1,500 years later when some guy arbitrarily decided to fuck up everybody's calendar.
Right. And that you'll vouch for. You'll vouch for 1,500 years
We
later.
have the doc.
Some guy changed everybody's calendar. Let me answer the question next.
For anybody.
Let me answer the question. Because it's a really good point.
Hold on. You think I made up Pope Gregory? We know we have the historic documentation for his invention of the Gregorian calendar. I didn't make that up. I'm not vouching for it. Get on fucking Google. Look it up yourself.
Aaron, you vouched for the year, which vouched for the timeline. So let me answer the question, if you would.
For anything, I said
you said 1674, which is the timeline of Jesus already existing. You can't
No, it isn't. Because that was on the Julian calendar. Until that point, until when Pope Gregory changed it, and then he got the entire Roman Empire to start using his calendar instead of the Julian calendar, which was the one they were using. So then everybody had to change their dates because your statement is factually false. They were not keeping time since Jesus' birth.
There's no way you, Aaron, there's no way you can falsify that. All we have to go by.
We already have.
No, you haven't, Aaron. You have no idea what happened back in the past. You can't vouch for that and then disprove another.
Gregory invented this calendar. Yes, we do know that. Okay. We have historic records for it.
It was 1674, correct?
I don't know that.
Oh, you said it earlier. You can't change your mind now.
It was 1573. It was in the 16th century. So 1573.
So, Aaron, so let me answer the question. So the reason why I believe in Jesus, and you won't agree with this, and you'll cut me off probably, but Jesus told other men not to lust after other women and to come follow him instead, and men did. That's not explainable. Don't be a drunkard, come follow me. If someone smacks you, turn the other cheek. Everything Jesus taught is contrary to all of everything we want to do. Don't store up treasure here on earth, right? So everything he said, don't make money, don't be a drunkard, don't lust after women, and pray for your enemies. Everything he taught is everything we don't want to hear, but yet we're talking about him. Everybody's talking about him. So
oh, are you there? It seems we lost Arn. I think his internet connection broke up. So just one quick question from me. We'll try and fill the time. So you're talking about a calendar. You are aware that the Gregorian calendar isn't the only one that is currently used?
Yeah, but my answer to that would be pointing to an orange doesn't make an apple disappear. That wouldn't discredit the timeline of Jesus.
I'm just talking about the calendar. You said everyone on the planet.
Well, I'm not talking about a calendar. I'm talking about a timeline. I'm talking about a numbered timeline.
Yes.
So if we went back.
So we know there are two different timelines, right? We know that a lot of people on this planet are not following your timeline based on Jesus as you think.
Correct. That doesn't make it not exist, though.
It doesn't. An orange doesn't make an apple disappear. What I'm trying to say is, you earlier claimed that everyone is using your timeline. Hold on for a second, Arn. Yeah, I'm trying to fill the dead air. I'm talking to Mike. Can you rejoin?
I'm trying. It says I'm already connected, but I'm also not connected, so I don't understand this. It says I'm connected to my router, entering the studio. I don't know what the fuck happened. I'll be there in a second.
Yeah, try rebooting your computer. Maybe that helps. Okay, so Arn is trying to get back. I think we might have him back already. I'm not sure. There we go.
Try to find the next question that I can get to.
Well,
Yeah.
I didn't get it. I didn't finish answering. I was about to when you cut out. So
Okay.
we're keeping time. We're keeping time from a man who told men not to lust after other women.
No, we're
That
not.
doesn't make. Wait,
No, we're
okay,
not.
so you dis. Okay,
No,
so
we're
you
not.
disagree.
That's-
Okay, so
that's-
you
It's
disagree.
not that
All
I
right.
disagree. It's that you can
Okay.
Google it right now on your phone
Right.
and show
That's-
when did
that's
Pope
what I-
Gregory change the calendar.
Arn, that's
Right,
what I
okay,
was.
See that I'm.
and
It's
who
not
is
that I
Pope Gregory?
disagree. It's that you're wrong.
No,
That's
I'm not
what it
wrong.
is.
Aaron,
Arn,
you
this
cannot
is the-
prove
Pope
that to me.
Gregory
Arn, this
invents
is the part
calendar.
that you missed. So I told Mike that we have other calendars. We even have older calendars than the Gregorian calendar that go further back, much further back.
We have the Yazidi calendar that goes back more than 6,000 years.
Yes.
We have the Hebrew calendar that goes back 57, almost 5,800
And I'm going to
years.
tell you, pointing to another calendar doesn't make the calendar. And I don't even I'm not talking about a calendar. I'm talking about a timeline, a numbered. If you went back 2,025 years, you'd be in a time known as before Christ, BC, right? So,
except that it wasn't known as that.
right. So BC doesn't exist because Aaron doesn't like it. Why don't you just admit
No,
you hate
because
God?
it doesn't exist. It wouldn't exist.
So
If you went
Aaron,
back
because
2,500
Aaron
years,
says there's no BC. What does BC stand for, Aaron?
if you went back, it means before Christ. So if you went back to what
Awesome.
we're calling
Yeah.
right now, if we went back 2,500 years from right now, you would be in a time that would be known in the Jewish calendar as 33 or 3,400 something or other. I think somewhere around that range.
Yeah.
That would be according to the Jewish calendar. There's also the
Okay.
Yazidi calendar that's even older, and then there were previous versions of the Roman calendar.
Okay. So what does that?
And
So Aaron, pointing
what?
to an apple doesn't make an orange disappear. That does not.
That's
dispense
right.
the
So you
time-
should stop doing that.
That does not make the
So-
timeline of Jesus disappear. I'd like to answer the
I
question.
don't need to make the timeline of Jesus disappear, but we were not we're not counting from Jesus's death or birth or whatever. We were on the Julian calendar for 1,500 years until Pope Gregory decided to fuck it up.
Right. And Pope Gregory was what? Who was he? The Pope of what?
Catholicism.
And who is Catholicism based on?
So you're saying that the Hindu calendars then are that their Hindu gods are real because they have
So now
based on their Hindu gods.
Well, I could give you biblical support for that. Yes, I can, but you'll probably cut me off.
How would you get biblical support for Hindu gods? I want to hear this.
Because there's not biblical support. There's other gods that are demons. So when Moses challenged Pharaoh,
so you just write off that other gods are demons.
Yes.
By the way, the exact date was 1582.
Okay, good. So when Moses did his miracles in front of Pharaoh, and
he didn't exist, by the way.
Okay. Well, the two people, his sorcerers that the Pharaoh brought out, they were able to duplicate the first 3 plagues. They were able to duplicate it.
Myth, which
according to that. Well, if you deny it, why do you quote from it? Why do you quote from it and read it and you know so much about it if you deny it? Right?
Because I know a lot of mythology. I've read the Quran. I've read the Bhagavad Gita.
So you just
I've read the Book of Mormon. I know these myths and fables. I've read Prometheus Bound by Alcestis. I've read a lot of mythology. I can quote a lot of mythology. Doesn't mean I believe it.
Okay, so you deny the timeline of Jesus. Do you deny that the temple wall still standing in Jerusalem?
No.
Okay. So all right. Do you deny the existence of Israel? I sent this to you. Good. So I sent this to you.
Do you deny the existence of Troy?
Who's Troy, man?
Who is Troy?
Who's Troy?
The city of Troy.
The city of Troy. The one that was buried, or that was Pompeii? No, I don't deny the existence of Troy.
Okay.
No,
so when archaeologists found Troy, the fabled city of Troy, which was only known through Hellenistic beliefs, does that prove Hellenism?
No, there's fallen angels that masquerade as gods, and that's addressed in Exodus. It's addressed in the Bible.
No,
it's addressed.
What does
in the book of Jasher.
even if there were fallen angels, how would that address the existence of Troy having an entirely different religion, had no connection to yours at all?
Because the fallen angels would masquerade as God. They give people power.
I see. So
so you don't believe in anything
spirits that come
supernatural?
down. No, I don't. There is no supernatural. So you
Okay.
believe that these magical beings come down just to fool everybody on the planet but you.
There's a reason why. There's a reason why. No,
There's
not
a
everybody.
reason why every
Not everybody
expert
but me.
disagrees
I
with
never
you.
made that claim. Aaron, I never made that claim. I don't claim
Well, you made the claim that people who know most about the Bible are wrong because they disagree with you. People who know most about science are wrong because they disagree with you. And you say that the people who know more about the Bible and more about science are wrong simply because they disagree with you.
No, I demonstrate that the science isn't there for evolution. I demonstrate
No, you
that.
didn't, because you don't even understand what the science is.
Aaron,
You don't even understand what evolution is,
Aaron,
despite having it explained to you multiple times.
Aaron, again, I can form a person. You can't. And you know you can't.
Yes, I
can form a
can.
person.
You
Aaron,
can't.
Aaron, a sperm and an egg come together and forms an entire person in 9 months.
Oh my God.
Demonstrate your process. Demonstrate it. The only way, Aaron, the only way, everything you said is in lieu of a duplicate process to explain where the
Except that
already
it's
existing
not. And
man and woman come from.
You just don't.
Aaron, you have to duplicate.
All you do is make false statements and then refuse correction. That's not an argument. Being wrong about everything is no way to win an argument.
Okay, so does a sperm and an egg form an entire person? Yes or no, Aaron?
As part of the subset of evolution, yes, it does.
Okay, does a sperm and an egg come from an already? Does a sperm and an egg come from an already existing man and woman?
I'm going to read the next comment, because all you're doing is blocking information from getting in to protect your ignorance.
Right.
I'm going to read some comments and questions from the people who are watching.
Go ahead, man.
Omnipresent has 2 questions for Mike. One, why do you think students are studying evolution at school? Let's do that one first.
Because there's because evolution, the story of evolution was made up to lead people away from God. That's the sole purpose for evolution being taught. Evolution is taught through the system.
Then, my own question, why is it that all of the pioneers of evolutionary theory were Christian? And why is it that so many of the champions of evolutionary theory are Christian now?
I have no idea.
Because you're wrong. That's why. Because the claim you make about evolution, about the purpose of evolution being to deny God, that is wrong. You are wrong. So the next question is, what did you learn from biology classes at school?
I didn't learn anything. I took no biology. Nothing that I paid attention to. Yeah,
obviously.
Evolution and biology are 2 different things. I
just had to give you a lesson in high school biology today.
Aaron, evolve a blade of grass. Aaron, evolve a blade of grass.
We can, but you won't
evolve a blade. No, show the process.
You don't want to learn anything.
All you
want to do is distract and deflect
evolve a tick.
And sidetrack, and you will not
evolve a tick. Aaron, evolve a tick. Not even a human. Evolve a tick. Evolve it. Show the process. Show the process.
But you won't. You won't. I tried to show the process, but you won't stop interrupting to say stupid shit.
Okay.
So Michael Corcoran offers $2 and says, "Ask Mike if extinction happens and why it happens."
I have no idea.
Okay. Do you ever get the impression? This is my question now. Do you ever get the impression that I have no idea is probably not a good way to go address people who have studied the subject?
No, because all we do is we live in 2024 and we look back and we try to make sense of where we are and what we see, right? So,
and how can you do that when you don't study anything?
Well, you gotta figure there's half of it's full of shit. You gotta treat these scientists, right? You gotta treat them like the media, right? Do you trust the media?
When you go to see the dentist, and the dentist shows you an X-ray, and you obviously don't understand the X-ray itself. So when they're trying to explain to you what you need to do with your teeth, do you just assume that half of what he's saying is bullshit?
No.
Would you rather go to your plumber and ask him?
No, not at all. But if you're telling me there's 2 processes that form a person and only one is known, then I'll call bullshit on you.
And both are known.
Okay, so evolve a person.
The sperm and the egg, that's part of the bigger one that I'm trying to explain to you.
Aaron, are you claiming that you can form a person without a sperm and an egg in today's world, and a duplicate process that a sperm and an egg in the real world forms a person, a man and a woman, a sperm and an egg? You're claiming there's a separate process that you can show that takes a similar amount of time that you can verify. That's the question.
No,
I'm asking.
evolution
Okay,
takes
so
longer.
no. Hang on a
Evolution
second.
takes,
Hang on. So no, you
I'm
can't.
answering the question. If you'd
Go
shut
ahead.
up long enough to hear the answer. The sperm and the egg is part of the evolutionary process. And yes, the evolutionary process is valid and confirmed and demonstrable, and we can verify it. Yes, we know this. We can show it to be true. And it doesn't happen in one generation, and it doesn't produce only one individual, but you refuse to learn anything. Now, shut up for a moment while I get to the next comment. HiveSci offers $5 and says selective breeding is manipulation of the genetic processes of evolution for traits favorable for human use, domestication, and symbiotic evolution. Okay, well, that was just a comment, not a question. And I'm afraid, HiveSci, that it fell on deaf ears because this is a closed mind that does not learn. Then we'll go to Milwaukee Atheists and offers $10. Thank you. And says, Mike, have you ever read a book or peer-reviewed paper from a biblical scholar? And mind you, this is coming from a biblical scholar. If so, I'd love to know from which scholar, so I know where your misinformation about the Bible text comes from.
I read a ton of books.
Milwaukee Atheist has gone through the trouble of learning Koine Greek, and he's taken years of college and Bible study. He knows what he's talking about better than you ever will, and he's asking this question.
Can you state the question again?
Have you ever?
I've read other books, and this is my interpretation I'm presenting in what I read from the Bible.
The question was, have you ever read a book or peer-reviewed paper from a biblical scholar?
I'm gonna say no. Maybe
Okay,
no.
well,
I
that
read
was obvious too.
I read a lot of different things. So I don't know if it's
something
peer-reviewed.
written by Kent Hovind, I would guess. Maybe something by Ken Ham. Maybe.
No, this is all me, buddy. This is all me. This is all me.
Well, so your misinformation is entirely your own ignorance.
Aaron, at the very beginning of this, right? You invited me on and you said, I read some interesting comment. What did you find interesting about them? What did you find interesting? Because I can form a person and you can't. No. There's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of different comments. For some reason, you singled me out and invited me on out of that group.
Yeah.
Why? And you introduced me and said,
I just answered that question. I will answer it again because of the depth of your misinformation.
Right.
It's hard for me to run into somebody that knows as little as you do.
Right.
And
except I can form a person.
That.
Except I have a man and a woman standing there with no scientific explanation, Aaron. And
except
you can't.
That they have
no, Aaron. The only way, Aaron, I know you're mad. The only way you can shut me up.
I don't like liars.
Aaron, you would have to, Aaron. The only way you would have to show in real time a second process that forms a person from a different start point than a sperm and an egg, and you can't do that. Not a person on the planet can do that.
I'm not going to bother with this because you're trying to misunderstand. You're trying to misrepresent.
I'm not trying to. I'm stating facts.
No, you're trying to deliberately misrepresent so that you can maintain a misunderstanding. You don't have sincerity. You don't want to understand. You want to make believe. So the next question. The next comment or question is from Zekius, who offers $10 and says, cloning can allow for evolution. It's just much slower than sexual reproduction because there's a lot less changes for DNA, but there's still changes. I wouldn't agree with that. Cloning is in a single lifetime, and it's not much slower. So I think that the question was misread or mistyped. The next question is from Little Potato, who offers $10 and says, Mike, you seriously believe a magical incantation was just spoken into existence? I don't know about you, but I cannot just speak things into being, but you can't accept small adaptations over time?
I never once denied small adaptations, so I don't understand that.
Well,
is that supposed to be a left hook?
Pekingese, separate from dachshunds, separate from Dalmatians.
Okay. I have no issue with
Do you
that.
think do you think that there were dachshunds and Pekingese and Dalmatians on Noah's Ark?
We already went over this.
Did we? I don't think we did.
I said there's genetic variation within the dog population, is what I said.
So there is evolution.
And I've said that. Well, hang on a second. I've said that multiple times. I've never. I said
I just want to get a
Top, and Morgan
clarification from you.
Freeman is not proof of evolution.
Okay, so you accept that evolution happens. You just don't call it evolution, so that you don't have to accept that evolution happens.
No,
genetic variation happens in reproductive populations over many generations, but you won't accept evolution because that's exactly the same thing.
Aaron,
genetic variation, reproductive populations, many generations. That's how we get dachshunds, Dalmatians, and Pekingese from a common ancestral dog. Yes or no? Do you accept that demonstrable, verifiable fact?
Sure. Yes.
Thank you. Then you accept evolution.
Awesome, Aaron. If I drank a fifth of vodka for the rest of my life, and then my son drank a fifth of vodka every day for all of his life, and that continued on for 1 million years, would I evolve a second liver to help me process that alcohol?
That's Lamarckism.
Would I evolve a second?
I'm answering your question. That's no.
Okay, awesome.
It's a two-part question. Let me answer the fucking question. That would be Lamarckism. Lamarck was a predecessor to Darwin. His mechanisms did not work. You're discussing Lamarckian evolution right now, and it wasn't until 70, 80 years later when Darwin came along and came up with a mechanism that actually does work and has been verified to work. Lamarckism doesn't work.
Okay, so this might be Lamarckism too, but if I, instead of drinking a fifth of vodka every day, if I decided to lift weights every day and my son lifted weights and so on for 1 million years,
that's Lamarckism too.
Well, hang on. So would any of my children ever evolve a second set of arms to help assist with the weight?
Under no circumstances would you evolve a second set of arms for other reasons that have nothing to do with evolution. It's simply that you wouldn't be able to. I'm trying to explain this. I'm trying to answer your question, because there's no way in the structure that you could have any kind of grotesque sort of mutations where you would have a functional second set of limbs, which is why we remain tetrapods, not hexapods. And that is Lamarckism, not Darwinian evolution.
In
Darwinian evolution, in Darwinian evolution, you can have any number of new traits that develop. They're usually small, they're usually subtle, and then later generations build on what is there.
Okay, so Aaron, do you realize what you just said? I don't think you know what you just said.
Yeah, I definitely know what you just said. You don't know what you said at any point in this conversation.
Okay, so Aaron, let me ask you another question. If I put a fish on the land for its entire life and let it flop around, stopping only to let it catch its breath and put it back in the water, if I did that for 1 million years, would that fish turn into a person?
It is possible for mutations to occur. It has nothing to do with what you do to the individual fish.
Well, I got 1 million
populations, many generations, and you have to remember mutations. So if you don't get the right mutations, then it doesn't matter what you do to the individual fish.
Aaron,
that was the answer to your question.
If I put the population of fish on the land and I did that to all of its offspring for 1 million years, because the population is a dodge. What you just said is a fish. You just said it, Aaron. You just defeated your own theory.
No, you have no idea what you're talking about.
A fish how would a fish turn into a person if I put it on the land for 1 million generations? The whole population, Aaron. The whole population. You got the whole population to work with. Turn it into a person.
Because we're talking about mutations occurring.
Right.
That confer an advantage. So different mutations in shallow water fish, in fish that live in warm waters where there's not much oxygenation, they do have the ability to mutations will produce more efficient systems on how they can respire or how they can breathe through their swim bladder, which is also basically a lung. Earlier fish like the crossopterygids. They started out as lungfish, and then they were able to, in oxygen depleted areas, they were able to rely on their lungs, and so they were able to stay out of the water longer. And so that's why we have this genetic advantage. And then teleost fish tended to have lost that when they get into more oxygenated areas and become the more traditional fish that we know today. The next question is from Johannes Brahms, who offers $5 and says, ask Mike exactly how genetic variation works if it precludes descent with inherent modification.
I have no idea. So the questions, the examples I just gave show the limits of the genetics you have. So Aaron,
the examples
hang on a second.
The examples you just gave ignore the question.
Aaron,
The examples you just gave ignore the question.
Are you going to let me answer? Yes,
Genetic variation.
You. Aaron, there's limits within genetic variation. That's why humans produce humans. Aaron,
what are the limits?
What's in our gene code, Aaron? Well, that's it. That's all. Humans produce humans.
What do the mutations do? What do mutations do?
They cause defects. They don't produce a kidney. They don't produce. Aaron, they don't produce a kidney, liver. No, they don't.
They do. Yes, they do. It's been positively confirmed genetically. There are beneficial mutations positively confirmed. I have a list of them in my book. I could list several more. Yes, there are positive mutations that have been specifically identified and linked to what type of mutation it was and where in the codon it was. I've got a list of these just within humans.
Which mutation produced our heart?
It wasn't a single mutation to produce our heart, and that was a long way before there were ever even vertebrates.
Aaron,
what?
Did the mutation produce the heart? It had to produce the veins at the same time, and it had to produce the blood, or it would the blood would squirt on the ground. So the heart was produced with no veins.
The heart existed before blood, and the heart beat. And I know this is going to confuse the fuck out of you. The heart beat evolved before the heart did.
Okay. Can you evolve one?
I know that's going to confuse you, but it's
that doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I've got a 50-part playlist. If you were capable of learning, I would recommend you see it. All right, I'm going to move on to the next comment. Little Potato offers $10 and says, yes, Mike, we look at herself and we see apes. Yes, Mike, we look at herself and we see apes because we have the same thing, but no God, because books said so, even though it's impossible for your book correlation to show a spaceless, timeless being.
I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that, man.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to interpret that question. Well, there's no evidence for God. We can demonstrate evolution in the lab and in the field. So that maybe is where they're coming from. Johannes Brahms offers $5 and says, demonstrate your process, Mike? Okay, explain genetic variation and such that it precludes descent with inherent modification.
I don't even know where to begin with that. I'm not a biologist.
Obviously.
All I can say
more
to
than
that
every biologist.
No, I don't. Aaron, I don't know anything more than any biologist. I know there's no process called evolution that is the reason that I'm here.
Well, there is a process, and it is called evolution, and it is the reason that you are here. So, yeah.
Right. Well, we're just going to keep hollering at each other, Aaron, but just for the record, I'm going to say it again. You cannot duplicate a process to the sperm and egg one. If you could,
you can continue to lie about that, but I mean, I'm not going to call you a liar. I mean, you have no idea what you're talking about. You're just
right. Aaron, I conform a person. I have my known source. I have my known start point, and I can form an entire person from it. Right. So you're claiming there's a second process to the one that we know today.
There is a primary process. There is a primary process that precedes the one you're talking about and explains the one you're talking about. Yours is the process you're talking about is a subset of the process I'm talking about.
Actually, no, it's not, because a sperm and an egg.
It is.
No, it ain't.
It is.
Aaron, don't be mad, buddy. Don't be mad.
I'm sorry, but when you state falsehoods, when you don't know what the fuck, and you're talking about people who have studied this and know better.
No, Aaron, a sperm and an egg forms a person. It comes from an already existing man and woman. You're claiming.
Okay, I'm going to recommend
your process.
Something.
Aaron, evolve a person.
The National Academy of Sciences. the National Academy of Science, Institute of Medicine, Science, Evolution, and Creationism. And it says that evolutionary science provides the foundation for modern biology, and it has opened the door to entirely new types of medical, agricultural, and environmental research. It has led to the development of technologies that can help prevent and combat disease. This is the National Academy of Science. But you think you know more than every biologist about shit you've never studied and can't even define.
Aaron, keep looking in the National Geographic. Keep looking in that
I'm
article.
not looking at the National Geographic. I'm looking at the National Academy of Science.
Okay, so keep looking at the National Academy of Science and look for a duplicate process that forms a person to the one I present.
It doesn't need a duplicate process. Your process is a subset of the evolutionary process, as I tried to explain to you at the beginning. Yeah.
Sperm and an egg comes from an already existing man and a woman.
Except that it doesn't have to be already existing, because we know that there was already a dog before there was a Dalmatian, before there was a Dachshund. We know there was already a dog. The dog already had a heart and lungs and kidneys and everything. So you accept evolution does happen, and you don't need an already existing Pekingese for the sperm and eggs of a Pekingese, because you know that the sperm and eggs of the Pekingese came from the sperm and the eggs of the previous dog that was not yet a Pekingese. That's kind of how evolution works.
Okay, if you want to say already existing dogs reproducing already genetically verified different variations of dogs, if you want to say that's evolution,
and then those different variations of dogs,
feel free to say that. But for some reason, people think it's the explanation for our existence, which is why we very often talk about God. It's not.
Because it absolutely is.
Well, we're just going to have to disagree then.
We know.
I'm going to make my case.
We can agree that you are wrong on every assertion that you are wrong.
I stated all fact. Aaron, I'm sorry. Aaron, I don't mean any disrespect by saying that. Aaron, I stated all fact. You cannot show. Aaron, where is the group? Aaron, look up Aaron.
You stated one fact only. One fact only. Only one fact have you stated. The sperm and an egg will produce a person. Every other thing you've said has been wrong. Either on biology or on evolution or on theology. All of it was wrong.
Aaron, when has a person been produced? When? Where is this second process? That's what I'm asking.
It's not a second process.
It is a second process.
Your process is the secondary process. It starts with evolution, yes, because we're asexual reproducers first, and then the development of sex was highly incremental. It was it was in many different stages before we got to the penis that shoots semen. All of that incremental, long way back.
Aaron, I'm sorry. If you think
I know that you're sorry. You can stop apologizing.
No, Aaron.
Next comment.
Aaron, well, no, I know you want to. Aaron, you want to get because you're avoiding
over time.
You're avoiding.
I want to get to the next comment. Little Potato offers $5 and says this person never understood the asexual reproduction. Yes, that's correct. He didn't.
No. Wait a second, Aaron. If you think we were asexually reproducing before we became male and female, Aaron, you're limited. Evolution is limited to 80 years, one human lifetime to produce. Yes, Aaron.
We're going back billions of years for this.
Right, billions of years. Aaron, if every man
populations over many generations, you keep blocking that out.
Aaron.
Yes, I know you want to misunderstand so badly.
Aaron,
I'm going to read the next comment.
Oh, you guys hide behind populations. You guys hide behind them.
I'm not hiding. You're the one who's hiding.
Every time you get a question you don't like,
obfuscations and distractions.
Every time you get a question you don't like, you defer to populations instead of answering.
You don't have a question I don't like. I can answer every question. You can't answer anything. The only answer you have is I have no idea. Now, I'm going to read. These people sent questions they want to ask you. I'm going to read the questions they want to ask you. Do you mind?
Go ahead, man. No, go ahead, man.
Bandit. How does he explain ERV, endogenous retrovirus, cross-species genomic presence that correspond directly with current models of evolution with his theism and no evolution?
That's a good question, and the only answer I would give to that is, and I'm not going to pretend like that doesn't exist or anything like that. I don't hide from anything. The only thing I would say is that there's common areas, common usage, common water systems, common food supply, common areas that us and other animals use, such as like an ape or something like that. There's common environments. That's the word I'm looking for.
What's an
Common
ape?
environments. What?
What's an ape?
Whatever you want it to be. I don't have
Well, it's
definitions.
not whatever I want it to be. It's whatever it really is.
Okay.
So
whatever you say.
Look it up on Encyclopedia Britannica, for example. Look up what an ape is. An ape is any member of the taxonomic superfamily Hominoidea, and that
Okay.
includes humans.
Okay.
You are an ape by definition.
I'm an image bearer of God.
Except that there is no such thing as God, and you are not invisible, so you are not in his image. Supercilious Pseudonym offers $20 and says, so if you believe that Adam and Eve were the first humans, you can understand that you can trace your ancestry to any other human alive. That family tree extends to every living thing on Earth. Older fossils are much simpler. Again, that was more of a comment than a question.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, that's evolution too.
Mm-hmm.
Genetic variation over reproductive populations over many generations. That's how we derive different demes of people, for example. That's also how we derive Neanderthals and Homo naledi and what is it, Homo erectus and Ergaster and so forth. Moving on to the next one, Nan, N-A-N, says, what is his specific religion?
I'm a born-again Christian, Bible-believing Christian. No denomination.
That is not at all surprising. Then Mr. Creenan says, what stops small variations and adaptations from adding up to big differences over accumulated time?
The limits of what we have. In other words, like the example I gave, a fish would never turn into a man. We would never evolve a second liver.
A fish would not turn into a man. I'll grant you that, because that's an individual turning into another individual. We're not talking about populations over many generations, over hundreds of millions of years.
You're hiding behind time, Aaron.
I'm not hiding behind time. I'm not misrepresenting. It's
Aaron,
not that I'm not. What it is that I'm not misrepresenting everything the way that you deliberately are.
I'm not.
Aaron, it would not be.
Aaron, the question asked me.
It would not be a fish. Right. Man, you are hiding behind your misrepresentation.
Right. Aaron, so put the population of fish on the land and do that for 1 million generations.
Population.
The population. I'll give you the whole population. Put it on land for 1 million generations. That would never turn into a person because of the limits of the genetics inside the fish.
What's the limit of the genetics?
It's got a left and right limit, Aaron. You want Aaron? I'm sorry, I don't mean to disrespect. If you're claiming it doesn't, then you have to explain how that would turn. You have to explain how a population of fish would turn into a population of humans. You have to explain that
and because it's just
with a step-by-step process, Aaron.
And because
you have to explain that.
And because it's a population, it's because it's the explanation of biodiversity. It wouldn't be a population of fish turning into a population of humans. We have one subset that becomes two or more daughter sets. Always, it's at least 2 daughter sets and possibly more. So from your fish, you can turn they can lead to a bunch of different descendant types, some of which will go extinct, and you'll have some surviving types. And some of those may lead to amniotes, and some of the amniotes may lead to reptiliomorphs, and they might lead to synapsids as opposed to diapsids. And there's constant diversity. And all of this diversity always breaking into so that one original group becomes 2, then 4, then 8 and 16 and 32 and 64 and so on, except for the ones that go extinct. And so that one original fish population, you become many different populations, one of which might eventually actually be human. And we can demonstrate that genetically, and we can demonstrate that through and yes, we definitely did. And we can demonstrate that in the fossil record. And we can and already have demonstrated that. And we can and already have demonstrated that in the fossil record too.
Aaron, in your explanation, you used the words may and might multiple times. You used your imagination. You used your
No, I didn't
imagination.
use my imagination. I said that because it's biodiversity, there are many different types. Not
Right.
all of them will be. So roll your dice as to which lineage you're on. Are you on the one that goes to the humans, or are you on the one that goes to dogs, or are you on the one that goes to reptiles? Something like that. That's what I was talking about. It's biodiversity, which I would have to explain to you. And you don't understand biodiversity because you've got an absolutely fucked up misunderstanding of evolution. You don't want to know what it is at all.
Well, no, I actually
That's the
disproved
big
it
problem.
multiple times. I've disproved it multiple times. You've
You have
agreed.
never disproved it. You don't even understand what the fuck it is still.
Aaron, it doesn't exist. It's genetic variation.
Okay, so you're saying that dogs, that Pekingese and Dalmatians
you want to go to
and
Pekingese.
Dachshunds, yeah, we're
Right.
back to the thing you admitted before, and now you've retracted it. You
No, I'm not
accepted that
retracting it.
evolution was a thing before, and now you've gone back on your word. So now we
No.
have to go back to the thing again. So do you understand that Pekingese and Dalmatians and Dachshunds were not all simultaneously magically created by your God separately?
Sure.
Okay, so
So
they
the
all
gen-
have
so
a
there's
common
genetic
ancestor,
So there's genetic variation,
which
there's
is what
genetic
evolution
variation.
is. Which is
Right.
what evolution is.
which is, it seems like we agree. That's all it is. That's all it is. Aaron.
No, that's
All right.
not all it is. It's genetic variation over reproductive populations over many
Okay.
generations. But
Right.
that's how we got Pekingese and Dalmatians and Dachshunds from dogs that we previously derived from wolves.
We're kind of going in
So you
circles here, bud.
accept that, right? You
We're
accept
kind of
that?
going in circles. I accept genetic
You're right,
variation.
because you keep going back on your word and contradicting yourself. So
No,
do you
not at all.
accept? Yeah, it's definitely and repeatedly. So you accept then, let me ask you the yes or no fucking question and have you answer a yes or no and not contradict yourself 10 minutes from now. Do you accept that Pekingese, Dalmatians, and not just these, but not just breeds of domestic dogs, but that also wild species of dogs that we didn't even breed, like the African wild dog and the Asian raccoon dog and the South American bush dog, these were derived without our assistance, not from wolves, but from earlier forms of canids, from which wolves were derived too. Do you understand that these were they all come from a common ancestor, right? Do you understand these are genetic variations on reproductive
Genetic
populations?
variation. Yeah.
Okay, so you accept then, say yes, you accept that evolution happens in that case. Yeah?
I accept evolution, but not as an explanation for our existence.
So you accept that evolution is a thing. You can't go back and lie later and say that it's not a thing.
See, I'm not lying. No, because because
so you're going to contradict yourself again.
No, I'm not, because there's genetic variation.
You accept that evolution happens and is the explanation for these things, right?
Aaron, no, you're
yes
Aaron,
or no?
You're gonna let me speak, Aaron. There's genetic variation.
I'm going to let you say yes, or I'm going to let you say no. So you
Aaron,
accept that evolution
no, because there's two different
things, and it really is that it really is the explanation for the origin of the Pekingese and the South American bush dog and so forth. Yes.
Yes, there's genetic variation, Aaron.
Evolve a dog genetic now. Variation is what we call evolution.
Oh, okay.
Literally,
so good. I'm glad to hear you say that.
Literally defined as an allelic variance. So
I'm glad to hear you.
Evolution is a thing.
It's genetic variation.
Real.
Like you just said, genetic variation
is
that's all it is. It's genetic variation, and that's it.
Over
nothing more.
Populations over generations. That's what evolution is. Do you understand and accept that now?
I understand that, and that's all it is. It's genetic variation over populations. But now, do you accept
over many generations?
You now you take the rest
over
of the
multiple generations. Let's get the
multiple generations. Right. Yeah.
Okay, good. So you accept, and you cannot now go back and later say that evolution doesn't exist and that it's not a thing.
I've never once said that, Aaron.
You have several times said that.
No,
you've several times said that today.
What I'm saying is that you can't take a population of cells and turn it into a population of humans. You can't take it and turn it. Okay.
Yes, we can. It would take longer than my single lifetime to do it, but okay.
Aaron, it takes 9 months. Aaron, it takes 9 months to form a person.
Many generations. Many generations. You're denying that again. You're contradicting yourself again.
No, I'm not contradicting myself at all.
I'm done with you. I'm not going to try to teach you anymore because your job is to try and deny reality. So I'm not going to mess with your insanity anymore. I'm going to just deal with the other people's, the viewers' questions for you.
Okay.
So Zecus offers $10 and says, no mistype. Parthenogenesis is a form of cloning. The meiosis process isn't perfect. All of the types of mutations are still possible. Well, again, that's not really a question. Little Potato adds $5 and says, the literal definition of evolution is adaptation over time. And you said you're okay with adaptation, but deny evolution. Make up your mind.
Well, because there's two different evolutions. What's adapting?
How is there two different? What are the two different evolutions?
There's the one that claims to be the explanation for our existence, which it's not. And then there's wolves and dogs and everything you talk about. There's everything wolves and dogs.
How are they different?
Because you would have to turn a cell or into a dog or a human or any population. A population of them. Aaron, I just gave you an example of a population of fish.
We're still looking at that. So you're still talking about the one and only evolution. You're talking about two different evolutions. What's the other one?
Aaron, I agree to genetic variation. Nobody denies that. Dogs and
you did earlier.
No, I didn't. What I'm saying,
you said that God created everything. When I asked you specifically, did God create Pekingese and Dalmatians and Dachshunds separately? You said God created everything. So that is a denial of evolution of dogs.
It's either directly or indirectly created by God. That was not a denial at all.
Okay, well, it was a denial because it was a specific question regarding the existence of these dogs.
All right, let me have a few more questions, Aaron.
Okay, one more thing, just for the shits and giggles of it, on that evolutionary perimeter for high school students who don't know anything about evolution.
Mm-hmm.
It gives a definition of adaptation, and the summary is the definition of adaptation is evolution under the influence of natural selection.
Awesome.
So you can't say that it's not evolution, it's adaptation. Adaptation is evolution.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so getting to the next question. Frankenstein offers $4.99 and says, if you put Mike in front of a book for 1,000,000 years, does he learn? No, we don't need those kind of comments. Then Katio Living, $9.99 says, ask Mike why whales have vestigial leg bones.
Whales don't have anything vestigial. The example I give for humans applies to whales as well. Whales, we know exactly how they're formed, right? They everything they have, they're born with, and they have a left and right limit through their genetics as well. Like everything.
They don't have a left or right limit because we have
a left or right. Okay, so all right, so let me
have a left or right limit.
Okay, so let me rebut that.
Excuse me. You said you never took biology in high school. That's part of your problem because high school biology textbooks explain that mutations are the ultimate source of new information in the genome. So it's not based on whatever's in the gene code or however you said that. And yes, if you study paleontology, you will see that not only do whales have leg bones today still, but fossil whales still had 4 legs, even though the back legs, yeah, they really, really did. They really did have 4 legs, except that the back legs were not attached to the pelvis very well. And then when you go back further, you go back far enough, well, then they are attached to the pelvis and they can still walk. So why do fossil whales still have 4 legs?
Aaron, would a whale ever evolve antlers?
They were very close because they're part of the same family that also evolved deer, but that has nothing to do with whether they evolve antlers.
Would we ever evolve? Would humans ever evolve antlers?
That is an evasion of the question. That's answering
the question.
The question was no, you're not. You are not even beginning to address the question of why why do fossil whales still have 4 legs?
I can't get into that. I don't.
The answer to that question is not another question.
Because it's not a whale.
The answer to that question is not the question of would a whale evolve antlers? The answer to that question should address the question,
right?
And not change the subject.
The answer is that's someone's interpretation because you can't show the process.
It's not an interpretation.
It's an
interpretation.
You have whales.
It's not an interpretation.
You have one fossil to the next.
When you have the skeleton of a whale and it has back legs, and it is the skeleton of a whale, except that it has more developed back legs. The back legs are not big enough to walk with. They're not
Okay.
even attached to the pelvis anymore, but they're fully
Okay.
developed back legs. Why do they exist on these fossil whales?
I have no idea, Aaron. So now let me
Because
answer
you're
your
wrong.
question.
That's
Right?
why.
No, because I'm not wrong. Because this is something.
Why? Yes, you are
You
wrong
have a
about everything. Why do
no,
whale
Aaron,
embryos? Why do whale embryos have back legs?
Aaron. Would we
Why
ever
do whale
evolve antlers?
embryos?
Aaron,
Why
would
do
humans ever? I'm
whale
answering your
embryos
question.
have
Would
back
we
legs?
evolve? Would we ever evolve antlers? Would
The
humans
answer
ever,
to
as a
that
population?
question is not another question. It's not a
Okay.
deflection. It's not a red herring.
No,
Those are
no.
logical
The answer.
fallacies. So
The answer is
why?
it. The
No, it's
answer is
not an
within the
answer.
question.
It's not an answer. The answer to a question is not another question.
Aaron.
Why do whale embryos have back
You want to
legs?
limit the response. I know why you want to limit the response, Aaron.
Because
Why
you're
would we
wrong,
never?
and you need
Why
to
would
dodge
we
that.
never, Aaron? Why would we never evolve antlers as a population? Why would humans as a
Because we
population?
can.
We
could.
can.
That is
We could evolve antlers.
that is within the realm of possibility. Yes, it is.
It is.
And you did not address the question. You dodged the question.
Aaron,
Deliberately.
you're saying we could evolve antlers?
Yep.
And you're a biologist. You're an evolutionary biologist.
Yes. So Michael Corcoran offers $7.50 and says the Bible was taught to illiterate people, and that's why we have so many different ideas about it. Knowledge requires translation and analogy. Thought. Again, that's a statement. That's not a question. I need to find a question here. Erwin Bowens offers €5. It's a serious question. Has Mike even read On the Origin of Species? No, he hasn't. He hasn't read apparently anything. Frank Tovey says, ask him why he believes in Christianity. Would he still believe in Christianity if he was born in ancient Egypt or in India? Does he even know that Christianity is based on older religions? No, I doubt that very much, but go ahead and answer that, Mike.
I would say I was called. I was never born or raised a Christian. I've been slowly drawn out of the lifestyle I used to live, womanizing, drinking, this and that. So I probably would be a Christian. And you have no way to authenticate
if you were
which
born in
religion.
If you were born in India,
if I was, I pondered that too. If I was born in India, what would I be? And there's actually there's conversions going on in India. There's conversions going on in Iran. There's conversions going on in Gaza. There's conversions going on all over the Middle East. People having visions and seeing Jesus. We're on the cusp of the return of Jesus.
You know that
everything.
Hindus see Krishna too, right?
Okay, but there's multiple conversions to Christianity from Jesus directly intervening in people's lives.
And you know that people also convert to other religions like Hinduism,
sure.
Right?
Yeah, and people fall away. Yeah, there's a spiritual battle
fall
going
away.
on.
So they
fall away.
They meet Krishna in real life, talk to him, see him.
I have no idea. I have no idea.
I know that you have no idea. Okay. So we'll move on to the next question, because I wanted to be on 1 hour, and we've gone way over 1 hour and haven't made any fucking progress at all. All we've done is listen to you yell. So I'm going to try to get to the rest of these questions so we can be done with this.
Okay.
Now, let me see. The next question, he said, would he still believe in Christianity? Okay. Yeah, we asked that. And about the thing about, do you know that Christianity is based on other religions? That's a good question. Do you know what Christianity is based on?
Christianity is based on Christianity, and that's I started to answer that before.
That's circular. Is the religion of Christianity?
That's not circular. Well, wait a second.
What is the religion of Christianity?
You constantly cut me off, Aaron. You constantly. Why did you invite me if you want to cut me off? You or me nor you nor anybody listening can authenticate which religion came from which, because none of us were there.
Yes,
we can look. You were not there. You can read other people's opinions, but you can't authenticate it.
We have the words of Jesus himself explaining that he was Jewish. Christianity is based on Judaism.
Oh, okay. And Judaism and Christianity together form the Bible, the Old Testament and the New Testament when Jesus came.
And then we know that the Jews, before the Christians, added to their word, which you're not supposed to add to or subtract from. We know that they did both. The Jewish religion is, according to biblical scholars, primarily based not only on Mesopotamian mythos, but also on Zoroastrianism. Were you aware of that?
No, I wasn't. No.
Okay.
And
moving on to the next one.
Well,
Dara O'Kane says,
There's no
Dara
way anybody
O'Kane,
can authenticate that.
except that we can and have.
Right.
So Dara O'Kane,
by other sources
right? Yeah,
of today.
Dara O'Kane says, "I have a way to make new animals that Mike will understand. Equestrian breeding. A horse and a zebra make a horse and a new make a horse and make a zorse, a new animal." That was supposed to be a comma there. A horse and zebras and horses and zebras must have a common ancestor for that. Yeah, you accept that there's a common ancestor for horses and zebras, right?
Yeah, I don't have any problems. I don't have any problem with any of it. But a horse is never going to evolve.
Are you aware of three-toed horses?
Three-toed horses? Nope. Don't have a problem with that either.
In the fossil record, there were mesohippus before there were one-toed horses, because all the horses and zebras we have now are one-toed horses. But in the fossil record, we had three-toed horses, and we also had four-toed horses.
Awesome.
Yeah, and that again, that's evolution. That's okay. So Johannes Brahms offers $5 and says, "Mike, you twice admitted that you don't know how genetic variation works when I asked you, okay, why believe in things you don't understand?" That's a good question.
No, nobody denies genetic variation. Genetic variation is, like I said, Jackie Chan, Carrot Top, and Morgan Freeman. That's genetic variation.
Yeah, genetic variation is evolution.
Right.
Yeah, right.
I don't dispute that. I don't dispute that. I don't know why. I mean, that seems to be where you're making your stand.
You disproved it. You said several times that you disproved the very thing that you say now that you accept.
No. There's two different things we're talking about.
Genetic variation of reproductive populations over many generations, which is literally what evolution is. You said you disproved evolution, but you accept genetic variation over reproductive populations over many generations. So which is it? Did you disprove it, or do you accept it?
Aaron, the species, any species you take, human, whatever it is, dogs, whatever, elephants, whatever, there's genetic variation. There's genetic variation. There's genetic from the top, from there, there's genetic variation. From the bottom up, there's no process that duplicates what a man and a woman do, a male and a female. A sperm and an egg contain everything.
It doesn't need to duplicate that, because the ancestors, even the common ancestors between humans and dogs, were already using sperm and egg. It's just subtle variants when the sperm and egg come together and they create a zygote. There's the recombination thing that they do there when they make a zygote, and the mutations that are average for humans, 128 mutations per zygote. That's just what we begin with, and that's what you inherit as a new life form. So that's just to start with, and then you accrue more mutations as you grow. Now, moving on to the next question. Michael Corcoran offers $5 and says, "Mike, your politicians lie to you. Why can't ancient Neoplatonic philosophers tell you factually incorrect things? Bjork said you should not let poets ... Oh, he continues for $9.99 and said, no, that's somebody else. I don't know, that statement wasn't complete, and I don't see where it was completed, so I'll have to leave that one. Then Carlos Kanchian offers $9.99, says, "Mike, the issue with magical thinking like yours is your profound scientific illiteracy. Nature doesn't make bad or good mutations. They happen all the time. Environment will decide whether they are advantageous." The vast majority of mutations, by the way, are statistically neutral. They don't have any effect on natural selection at all. Then Little Potato offers $5 and says, "Aaron, this is actually a hard question for you. Who's worse, Mike or Jesse Lee Peterson?" Jesse Lee Peterson is still worse than this guy. I'll give him that. Jesse Lee Peterson is professionally stupid. Then Erwin Bowens offers €5 and says, "Has Mike even read On the Origin of Species?" No, we read that one. Pattern Machines offers $20 and says, "Hey, Mike, did you know that nobody cares what you say?" These are not helpful.
Well, wait. I'll answer that one. I'd like to answer that one because Aaron cared. Aaron saw my comments, and when he introduced me, he was like, "I have somebody interesting, an interesting point of view right? So Aaron
Yeah.
took note. Aaron took note of what I said. So I'll just leave it at that. There's a reason why I'm on here.
Yeah. And I appreciate your being on here.
I appreciate you.
Frustrating though it is that I can't get you to hold to
Hey,
your own statements.
no, and I'm gonna parlay that back to you with no insult. I don't mean it like that. I don't mean to insult you. I don't mean to, but I'm gonna parlay that back to you.
How?
Keep with the questions. If you got
Okay.
any more.
Yep, we have it. We just a few, I think 3 or 4, and then we're done. Supercilious pseudonym, $5. Why does a giraffe's laryngeal nerve take a 15-foot detour down its neck to reach the larynx that is only a few centimeters away from the start of the nerve?
Is that a question for me or for you?
That is a question, but you'd have to know about the anatomy behind it.
Well, no, because I've seen that question, but it's used against evolutionists. So that's why I'm asking if it's for you or for me.
It can't be used against evolutionists. So what happens is in the prototype form, there's a space with it that this nerve goes over this particular bone, but when and in a fish it's just a few inches away. But when you develop a neck, well,
Yeah.
because evolution is not an intelligent design, it can't restructure, it can't rewrite. The nerve simply has to grow longer to get over that bone to go back to the original place, which means that in a giraffe, which has a ridiculously long neck, this nerve has to take a ridiculously long course because it wasn't intelligently designed to only make it the few inches that it needed to go. It ends up going 15 feet out of its way. So,
but my answer to that,
I'm sorry.
My answer to that would be it comes with the sperm and the egg. How the sperm and the egg come together, and that's how the giraffe was formed. That would be my answer. I don't know who that was for.
That doesn't even approach being an answer, but I'm so tired. I'm not even going to argue it. Milwaukee Atheist says, Mike, I'd like you to pick up a single book by a biblical scholar. I'll give you a good starting point. Who wrote the Bible? By Richard Elliott Friedman.
I'm not sure what you want me to do with that. I mean, who wrote this? You want me to answer who wrote the Bible?
He's asking you to read a book by a Bible scholar.
I read a ton of books.
This one is written by a Bible scholar.
Okay. Is he denying what? Well, so wait, is he denying the authors of the Bible? Because if you're denying the author,
he's explaining the authors of the Bible.
Okay, all right. I'm cool with the authors, but sometimes the reason I'm asking that is because sometimes say we don't know who wrote the Bible, and I'm like, well, we have this magnificent book that you hate it, but for me and others, it's a magnificent book, right? Everybody talks about it. It's banned. People are killed for having them. You're killed from Jesus being everything. We have this magnificent book, right? And it had but no author. So that would in itself,
we have this magnificent compilation of haphazard.
Well, if you're gonna deny the author,
one of your supposed authors is Moses, who we now know didn't exist.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to convince you of that. There's nothing. So the point we're at now is
even rabbinical scholars now admit that Moses didn't exist.
Okay, that's go ahead.
Yeah, moving on to the next question. Let's see. Mike, have you heard about? We talked about the recurrent laryngeal nerve and how it applies to giraffes. I'm sorry that I'm getting to these questions so late. Cyberweeze offers $4.99 and says, sidebar, Aaron, you hear about the Gateway Church fiasco? Crazy head minister is slime. No, I'd be happy to look that up elsewhere. Let me make a note of that because I get notes of that kind of craziness all the time. Just let me make a short note. Look that up when I'm done. Okay. Next question. Now Hart offers 50 Swedish kroner and says, serious question for Mike. What, if anything, could ever change your mind?
I've had supernatural experiences, so nothing.
So have I.
I've had supernatural experiences, so I know God is real.
Yeah, so have I.
Okay. I won't tell them here because you guys are not interested. So
yeah, I'm not interested because I know how deceptive supernatural experiences are. I've had them both as a reborn Christian and as a neo-pagan occultist for years after that. I've had more dramatic paranormal experiences than most Christians have, and I was with other people. Some of those experiences were shared, and I've come to realize that none of that happened the way I remember it, and I've had that verified. And it's a sad thing how the human mind can deceive itself into believing such things. So the last one, and I can let you go. I Am Conrad offers $9.99 and says, Mike, you dismissed definitions claiming they were man-made, yet the Bible was written by men. Double standard? And if your response is it's God's inspired word, then how do you verify this claim?
Well, it's a supernatural book still in existence. It's banned everywhere. People die just to
It's
have
not
one.
banned.
It's not, the Bible's not banned in any country. Why
You said it's
is
banned
the Bible
everywhere.
banned?
Let's start
So
with that.
the reason why, so the reason
everywhere.
well,
It's
no,
not.
not everywhere.
I've been in Sharia countries where they
Okay.
still sell the Bible in Sharia countries in their
Okay,
bookstores.
so are you denying it's banned in other places? Is it banned in
You
North
said
Korea?
you said it's banned everywhere. I
No, I
don't
did.
know if there's some remote corner where it might be banned, but I've
No,
been in Sharia countries where it's not banned.
no, there's multiple countries where the Bible is banned. So
Name
the
one.
answer is North Korea, Pakistan,
Bible
Nigeria,
banned in North Korea.
China. They're tearing churches down.
I don't believe that's true either.
Then my eyes are lying to me, bud. I might be as crazy as you. I mean that as a joke.
I'm not
Don't
crazy.
get all bent. Don't get bent. Well, you just said you had an experience that you later found out was, that's what I'm going at. I'm not trying to insult you.
Because that's
Joke.
faith. Faith is the most dishonest and auto-deceptive
Well,
position.
you said you had a supernatural experience, but then
I had multiple.
you had multiple, but then you
Yeah.
denied the supernatural. So there's a contradiction right there. But then you've
Yeah,
had other
because
people
I
tell you
realized
that
I realized how deceptive faith is.
right,
Faith
right.
is the problem. Faith is the most auto-deceptive and dishonest position it is possible to have. So if you want it, and seriously, you can't. The only way you can make anything more dishonest than faith already is to become a religious apologist.
Okay. Well, because you deny, or I'm not trying to insult you, but because somebody said that your experiences that you experienced, they discredited them or
Me.
not verified them.
I was the one that was not able to verify it. I need to be able to show that there's some truth to it, that it's not just a subjective impression. And if it's something that you only know from your own subjective experience, then it's no longer reliable. And it is, while it may be, it does say, I did verify the Bible is banned in North Korea, but not in China.
Okay. All right. Well, there's persecution in China. You just can't go. I do a lot of
persecution of various types everywhere. Christians excel at being persecuted. It's like your goal. You're not happy unless you're persecuted somehow, even when you guys own and control everything.
No, I'm actually own and control. Look at our society, Aaron. Our society.
Yeah, well, you guys own and control everything at every level of state and federal government, and you're trying your best to turn the United States into a theocracy?
No, not at all. No.
Look
I
up
don't
Project 2025. Yes, you are. The conservative movement is, in fact, and always has been since Reagan, has been trying to turn the United States into an authoritarian theocracy.
Would you rather have Christianity taught in school, or there's actually after school Satan clubs opening up all over the world, all over the nation? Who would you rather go?
As a member of the Satanic Temple, and I joined that temple specifically to fight Christian oppression, to defend our right to our freedom of religion, because what is the sole threat to the freedom of religion? It's religious conservatives. They want to take away our freedom of religion. That's why.
Some of them do, and I won't just go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I would never disagree. Like the Oklahoma teaching the Bible in school, for me as a Christian, I don't believe in imposing that on people. I believe in I don't believe in imposing it on people, right? So I would never say, because if I was Muslim, I would not want to damn, I'm an American citizen, and you guys are teaching the Bible. That would be the same. I wouldn't be. I try my best not to be hypocritical. So I would never, as a Christian, want to send my kids to school and they're teaching about Allah. That would offend me. So I don't impose it on anybody. I don't do anything. I walk up, I talk to people, I introduce myself. We have a few jokes, a few laughs, and I give my piece. You don't agree with any of it. You don't agree with the, the thoughts behind it. But that's what I do. So I would, but that was my question was, so you said you're a member of the Satanic Temple. So you would actually go with the after school Satan Club.
Yeah, I would, because the whole purpose is that we don't teach people what to believe. We don't teach people what to think. We teach them how to think.
Right.
And the preference would be that you don't believe whatever somebody tells you to simply because somebody tells you to.
Right.
Figure it out for yourself.
We agree on something. I would introduce it, but not impose it. I would introduce things, but not impose them. And I like the free thought.
I'm on the board of directors for American Atheists, 501c3. That organization was founded by Madeleine Murray O'Hare, who famously in 1963 got prayer out of school. The important thing to know was that she was talking about forced prayer. So this is where teachers would force Jewish and Muslim and Native American and Indian students to pray to the Protestant Christian God because the teacher is Protestant Christian or because the school is Protestant Christian. And so other people's children are forced to pray to the wrong God of the wrong religion, despite what their parents want to, despite what the children believe, despite what their parents want to believe. This is a violation of their rights.
Yeah.
So they got forced prayer out of school. And forever after that, we've had right-wing evangelicals complaining that children are not allowed to pray in school. Yeah, they're allowed to pray. They can pray all they fucking want to. They just don't get the teacher to lead them to do that.
So I don't agree with the forced prayer, but how do you think our nation's done since 1963? Are we going in the right direction? What do you think?
We were until recently. And we're correcting course. Yeah, until about 2020, and now we're correcting course again. We were making progress, and then there was that 4 years of going backwards, but now we're making progress again.
Oh, so you're saying we're making progress under Biden?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, all right. Well, that's a whole nother thing. Yeah,
and I can prove that as well. And I don't just mean in terms of social justice. I mean financially and practically everything. So and that's a different conversation. But I got one last question. Did we read that one? Okay. Nowhart offers 50 Swedish kroner, says, from salvationist to pantheist, suicide cultist to reality-loving atheist, I want to thank you, Aaron Ra and Professor Dave, for helping me deconvert. Thank you very much for sharing that. I love messages like this. I get one of these type messages every day. I have for about a decade. They keep me going. Here's another one just showed up. Mr. Cliff offers £5 and says, Mike doesn't even know his own Bible, so how on earth is he going to understand evolution? Let's let it go at that. Mike, I asked you to be on for 1 hour, and we have so gone over that, and I apologize that we did.
No, don't apologize. I enjoyed the back and forth, and no hard feelings. And it comes to a point where we went in circles a lot, and so and this is the reason why I don't impose my beliefs on anybody or even attempt to, or I don't agree with it, is because at some point everything I'm saying we're repeating it, and I'm not moving the ball with you at all, and you're not moving it at all with me. So we'll just have to agree to disagree, and I'll probably see you in the comments again. But
we can agree that you're wrong. That's
right.
How
can we agree on that if I don't agree? We can't agree.
I know. I show you the definitions. You say the definition is wrong. We quote the experts. You say the experts are wrong. It doesn't matter. But what happens is it's not the entire world. It's not the scientific community. It's not all of the scholarship on Earth that's wrong, and you're the only one that's right. It's everybody. It's the whole rest of the world that's right, and you're the one that's wrong.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll just leave you with this then. Okay. Aaron, Jesus returns to the Mount of Olives in Jerusalem. All Bible prophecy centers around Israel. Well, hang on. Put this in your back pocket, and everybody listening, because if I'm wrong, it'll be shown I'm wrong. Jesus returns and defends Israel in battle. He returns to the Mount of Olives in Jerusalem. That's where to watch, and everything centers around Israel. And I'll leave it at that. right
Okay,
there.
what's the
So
expiration? What's the expiration date on that prophecy?
well, let's see. There was a Holocaust, right? 1945. There was a major attempt to kill every Jew on the planet right before the reestablishment of the
And
nation of Israel. What's
what's
the
the
expiration?
expiration date
I'm
on your
going to put it.
prophecy?
You want me to? I don't set dates, right? Because we're not
Okay,
supposed to
there's
do
the
that.
problem. See, Jesus did. Jesus did say, he said that there are some of you standing here now, talking to his disciples,
Yep.
who will not even taste of death until you see the Son of Man returning in the clouds of the right hand of power. He said that to a number of people.
Yeah, he did, man. He did.
Which means he's 1950 years late.
Okay. All right.
So he failed his own prophecy.
Okay. So, Aaron, when you see all the nations coming to battle against Israel, you know that Russia, Turkey, and Iran are the lead three countries to invade Israel. Turkey just made a threat on them.
But that's not
Russia
what it
is in the
said.
mix. That's
But
Ezekiel
that's not what
38.
it said.
Well, that's my
That's not what it
interpretation.
said.
That's other people's
Okay,
interpretations.
so your interpretation, and you're not going to care about historians or Bible scholars or anything else. Let's
well,
just
that's why I
let it
learned.
go.
That's why I learned. That's what I
There's
learned.
never going to be a point where you admit that you're wrong. There's no amount of evidence you'll ever accept that you were wrong. You've already answered that question. So
Right.
there's no reason to. There's no justification. It's not a virtue to be unreasonable. It's actually a vice.
Right.
But I
Okay.
know that people say that faith is a virtue. It's not. There's nothing good about being unreasonable. There's nothing good about refusing to admit when you're wrong.
Right.
With that,
Okay.
thank you for being on. I'm going to let you go.
All right.
What I would have he says that if you cannot demonstrate something, then it can't happen. I live in a forest. I'm surrounded with dirt. I just wanted him to tell me what I need to do to convert that into sperm to make a human at some point. That's how confused I was.
Yeah.
Okay. I think
his whole denial that Genesis 3 is even talking about snakes at all.
Yes.
He says it's exclusively talking about Satan and not about snakes at all. I didn't even get a chance to get to Jesus calling the Pharisees both vipers and the sons of Satan. I got distracted.
I need to check too. I'm pretty sure I have my producer mic on. They said they could hear me. I need to go back and check. Oh, wait. Obviously. No, that can't be. No, I have no clue why they could hear me because it's not going on stream. Weird. Okay, you
Are we
can close it up.
finished now? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Thank you sincerely for taking part in this end stream. Okay.